Welcome to Season
Brian,
4
Billy?
of the
Brian
Talking Lead AK KORNER, proudly presented by Century Arms.
That's where we first met there. And
Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit.
yeah.
And then
How long ago was that? Like, God, it must be like 8 years ago or something like that? Or
It's getting on. I think it was 2014.
oh, okay.
It may have been 2015, but I think it was 2014.
Okay.
Actually, I've got my certificate kicking around here. I think I'll go on mute and hunt for it so we can pull that up. I think your signature is on it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'll have a look here.
that means something. You probably sell that, make a little dough.
I don't know about that, but
So Billy Andrew is with Century Arms.
okay.
Andrew and I have been friends for many, many, many years. Oh, you holding it up?
Can't see it.
Turn your blur off. Turn your blur screen off.
Yeah, it's 2014. Looks like.
You're still on mute, Keeney.
Sorry.
First
It's my
time.
first day back. I'm a little embarrassed, a little shy, a little nervous. Help a brother out. Let's see here. Let's do that.
There you go.
And then
Oh yeah.
there's the Billy Sig right there.
Long time
Yeah.
ago.
Sweet.
I'm selling this and half a sheet of plywood on Gunbroker for $5,000. No low ballers. I know what I got.
I'll give you
I'll actually
6.
keep that around
OBO.
for when we start recording.
High bid gets it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess we go ahead and start without Jim. I don't know if he'll show up or not. He said he was.
Arizona kind of has that weird time, don't they? Where it's like they don't follow daylight savings time.
Oh,
Text
right.
him.
That might be a real thing. Yeah.
Could be.
I never know what freaking time it is in Arizona.
So I've worked in nuclear physics for like 20 years, and I've used a bunch of survey meters, but never felt the need to have one until like 6 months ago. And I'm seeing this in my background right here.
Nice.
And yeah, check this shit out. Back in the day,
Oh, nice.
it's all tube driven too.
Yeah.
They're pretty neat.
Oh,
You know what I love about you, Keeney? I love that you match my equal level of paranoia. I love that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that, like, I worked with radiation for 20 years and never felt the need to have my own. And, like, I do now. Yeah, totally.
And I love that you got one that's analog and tube driven.
Well, yeah, you know what's up. Like,
Oh, I know exactly
EMP
what's up,
hard.
but I
Yeah,
appreciate
no, totally. The new shit will not be useful if you actually need it. And I used to design tubes, and I kind of want to roll my own now because this older stuff has some issues with it.
didn't we
but
talk
that's for
about
another-
a few episodes back that you designed some tubes that were going into space, like coming up? Did they ever made it up there yet?
Oh, yeah, they're on Curiosity.
Oh, okay.
They're the one that's been up there for forever that they got in trouble for overbuilding because they overbuilt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did part of the power supply and part of the X-ray tube on. It's called Chemin, which means the way, but it also stands for chemical mineral. It's a little X-ray instrument. The Curiosity has a little mouth on it that grabs rocks and chews them up and turns them into a powder, and then analyzes the crystalline structure of the rock to just see what the geology is on Mars. And X-rays are similar to visible light, but when they bounce off, when a high energy X-ray bounces off an element, and the X-ray is absorbed, that X-ray will get re-emitted at a kind of a fingerprint color that's extremely specific and precise. And so you can identify elements very precisely using X-rays. And then you can also do kind of like the way a rainbow works. The reason rainbows work because of diffraction, and you can do the same thing with X-rays to measure the crystal lattice spacing, so the spacing between elements. And if you have the chemical and the crystalline spacing, you can back out what the mineral is. And you can do that with everything from cocaine to chocolate to Viagra, all kinds of different stuff.
All things that apply to space technology. I love it. That's great.
You could probably sell those things.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. But instead, they wanted to sell it into fracking, which is dramatically less fun than cocaine. Not that I would know.
Less profitable, too.
There you go.
So I hear.
Well, today it is. That's for certain.
Oh, yeah. No shit. Definitely. Let's get started. Jim will jump on, I guess, when he realizes what time it is.
Yeah, he might pop in an hour or so.
All right, comrades. Welcome back to the Talking Lead AK Corner. This is the episode 6 of 12 this year. So we're more than halfway. This is the halfway point through this season 4, presented by Century Arms. So you guys go show Century Arms some love, because they're showing you some love. They are giving away, along with us, a BFT-47, and we're going to do that next episode. And joining us this episode, we've got Andrew, our good buddy Drew with Century Arms. Drew, welcome in.
How y'all doing?
So, Drew, tell them what we're doing. Tell them what they got to do. Do you know, or should I just go through everything?
It's probably wiser if you go through everything. I don't really understand much about the social media.
Yeah.
So you'll probably have the details a lot better than I do.
We call him No Social Having Drew, and for good reasons. There's a good reason Drew's not on social media. He shouldn't be. But for you lead heads that are, if you're not, you need to get on, because this is going to be an Instagram-only competition. And it is a competition because we're going to have judges involved. And you're going to make a post with a Century Arms firearm, any Century Arms firearm. Give them some examples of a Century Arms firearm, Andrew.
Any of our import guns from the last 70 years. So if you got a Mosin laying around, it's probably imported by Century Arms. Look on the stamp. Of course, any of our Canic pistols, our AP5 line, any of our many AKs that we've made over the years, our US AKs, the Visca, BFT-47, any of the Romanian Wazer products. If it's got CAI stamped on it, or CIA stamped on it, or Century Arms stamped on it, we'll take it.
There you go. So it could be a picture. The more the merrier. It could be a picture. It could be a video. You need to be safe. It needs to be legal. Don't do anything stupid, crazy. But the most creative post is going to win, because we're going to put it to the judges. So it's going to be a subjective kind of thing. So we're going to put it to judges. They're going to vote on it. And then the one who gets the most votes during our July episode, which, this is giving you less than a month by the time you hear this episode. But we told you about this a month ago, so you've had 2 months to get ready. We've got some posts up now. There's a few posts up now. And the way I'm tracking this is, when you do your post, you have to tag all of our sponsors. You tag Century Arms, you tag Occam Defense, you tag Factory 47, you tag Seal 1, you tag Mission First Tactical, you tag, who am I forgetting? Defiant Munitions, IWI, you tag all our sponsors of the AK Corner, and then you use the hashtag TLBFT47. That's the key, because that's how I'm going to track these. Hashtag TLBFT47. And it could be all caps, it could be lowercase, doesn't matter, it'll show up. But that's how I'm...
Rules somewhere on your Instagram page, Marty?
Do I have the rules? No, they have to listen to the show to get the rules. This is a listener... I'm trying to make this a listener-rewarded giveaway, so that just not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come across our post and get involved with it. You got to be a true lead head. You got to be a true listener for this.
I like it.
But here's a caveat that I'm adding. If we don't get enough participation, and I'm saying 30 to 50 entries in this, which I think is still low, we should be getting a couple hundred at least, then we're not giving it away. We'll come up with some other way. I'll probably get outside involved. We'll do some kind of gleam or something like that, or maybe we'll give it to Billy. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe we'll get to Billy to soup up.
Marty's like, maybe I'll just keep it.
Or maybe I'll keep it, because I don't have one. I still don't have a BFT-47. So I'm jelly of whoever's going to win this. But you got a month, so you got plenty of time. Again, be safe. And if you don't have a Century Arms firearm, go to your local gun store and rent a Canic and take it out and video yourself enjoying it at the range somehow. But again, be safe. Don't do anything illegal. If you do, we'll turn you in. I'll turn you in. I'll be a freaking stool pigeon, and I'll turn you in. So don't send me post anything that's stupid, unsafe, or ridiculous. But make it cool. We've got some examples up right now. If you search the hashtag TLBFT47, you can go see what some of the other lead heads have done. So, and I know some of you are probably waiting to the last minute because you don't want anybody to copy you. And I understand that, and that makes sense. But you're going to dick around and you're going to miss the cutoff because I don't record the 15th of every month. I record before. Like this show's being recorded, this is the 8th of the month. So whenever I can get the crew together to record the show, that's when we're going to do it. So I would say to be safe, sometime between the 8th and the 13th would be like, I wouldn't wait any longer than that. But there you go. So I want to see more participation in that. But this episode, we're going to continue the giveaways. We've got more from Seal 1. We're going to give away a big package of Seal 1 products. We're going to do the jump trays from Mission First Tactical. Andrew's got some more mags to give away, and no telling what else. Maybe Brian's got a hat or a T-shirt or something he wants to throw in. Pete is throwing in a box of 7.62 by 3.9. So one of you lead heads is going to get a box of the 7.62 by 3.9 from Defiant Munitions. But yeah, so it's going to be a good show. And we're talking parts kits today. So I brought in some experts on this. Just got introduced to Billy Cho and was excited to have him on. And this was through one of you lead heads. One of you lead heads actually introduced me to Billy, and I'm really glad that you did. And I'm really glad that Billy was cool enough to join us today. So Billy Cho, welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the name of your company now is Born Armory. Born Armory.
Yeah, I stay relatively low key. I don't spend any money in advertising and all that. So, been fortunate enough to have people buy stuff from me since the beginning and not have to advertise. So a lot of people don't, unless you've been around since the 2008, 2009 up to 2015. A lot of things happened with the AK community, and a lot of people have kind of forgotten about me, which is fine.
I don't think so. Everybody I've talked to knows who you are.
Yeah, and so a lot of people kind of maybe don't know who I am anymore, the new generation.
Well, we're going to talk about what it is you're doing now, and you're also into some knives, so we'll talk about that a little bit too. And then also joining us, I'm excited to have my co-host back. Ladies and gentlemen, the return of Brian Keeney with Occam Defense. Yay!
Very happy to be back and for life to be getting a little closer to normal while the world is doing what the world is doing.
I don't think it's ever going to be our definition of normal again.
There you go. But in any case, very happy to be chatting AKs with some wonderful people today, and looking forward to a good talk.
Yeah, we're going to talk home builds, parts kits, got shift tons of questions from our lead heads that we're going to go over. Hopefully we'll cover most of those during our general discussion here. Maybe, we've talked about it in prior episodes, but the 922R compliance, because that's going to go in with your home build, something that you definitely want to keep in mind when you're building your own AK-47. And then, obviously the tips and tricks here from the experts we're going to talk about. And hopefully Jim will jump on and join us as well. Talked to him earlier today, and he was cool with it. So I think you guys are probably right. Time zone probably got him jacked up.
Who knows?
He's in Arizona. So I think I covered all the main things there. Our sponsors, make sure you go show them some love. We'll talk a little bit more about them. I'll give you some discount codes here in a little bit toward the end of the show, so you can save some money on awesome products. But the home build kits, the parts kits, I think what a lot of people are afraid of right now is that new ATF ruling. And they're like, how's this going to affect me going forward? And the answer to that at this point in time is we don't really know clearly because the ATF hasn't stepped in and actually clarified what their ruling is. They've got, I don't know how many pages that document it is. You can go online.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I started reading it and dozed off. But there's smarter people than me that are going through that and whatnot. And I think you guys probably have a better grasp on what's going on with it. And maybe we start there before we get into the actual discussion, because I know that's probably first and foremost on a lot of people's minds. So, Billy, what do you know as far as what we've been given so far? How's your interpretation going? And we are not attorneys, so.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I did the same thing where I read over it, and I was like, this is just too much. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right. And so, what my dealings with the ATF have been is that they can always change things on a whim and reinterpret things however they want, or make up things on the fly, And so when we first were doing build classes, we went through, doing out-of-state build classes, and that was a whole ordeal on trying to figure that out. And they made new laws based off us doing that. And so, I'm probably as kind of just kind of waiting it out and trying to see what's going to actually happen before I make any kind of major decisions or things like that, or incite any kind of panic or things like that. But
sure,
I'm not really 100% of an expert on what everything means, just like everyone else.
It's just like you said, though, too. It's whatever they interpret it as whenever they want to decipher and interpret it. It could mean one thing one day and something else another day. And they've historically...
That's why industry people have to wait until we get a definition from the ATF, because they'll put out this, and one agent says this, one agent says that. So you have to get clear definitions of this stuff sometimes.
And there's no definition for clear either. They're not very clear.
Exactly.
But what we're talking about is the summary of Final Rule. It's 2021 R-05F, definition of frame or receiver and identification of firearms. And you can go on their website, like I said, ATF's website, and it's there. And I'll have a link in our show notes that you can go to go check it out.
The party definitely go down a massive rabbit hole here. So I would say let's just stick to how this would affect AKs, because if we get into how it affects everybody, I think we're going to be in for a whole.
No, and I completely agree with that, because an AK receiver is completely different than any other firearms receiver. So, yeah.
So I can tell you specifically how it will affect AK builds.
Okay.
From what the wording states, I've read it several times. Obviously, my company, we make AK, so it's of interest to me. But the only thing it's really probably going to affect is the sale of receiver flats. We'll get more into that, I'm sure, as we go through the show. But like an 80% lower that you can get for an AR-15, you can get a stamped flat sheet metal that you have to bend and then put your rails in and all that stuff to make your own AK receiver. So I think that the only thing really to be affected on the AK side is going to be the sale of those flats, as opposed to selling an already folded.
Well, they're blanks too. They have blanks and flats. Those are two different things.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The partially built AK receivers, like the 80% AR lowers, will not be around anymore. Yeah. You'll have to buy an actual made receiver with a serial number.
And
possibly that's the only thing we can see that will affect the AKs.
And there are some companies already that are making, I guess, movements or statements. Let me reshare my screen again here. AKbuilder.com has put this notice on their website. It says, as of August 23rd, 2022, we won't be selling receiver flats or blanks to individuals. Yep. And it goes on to say, it seems that the anti-gun agenda has finally reached the point of going after the people that were making it way too easy to make a handgun from a kit, and has caught us all up in the middle of it, which I disagree with that statement. I don't think they've made it way too easy. But anyway, and it goes on. He's got other personal opinions and reasons why they're doing it. So, and I think there's probably some other companies that are following suit. at this point.
Yeah. But there's far-reaching ramifications for other types of firearms. But for the AK, that's pretty much all we're seeing. That's going to be an issue.
Yeah, Brian, what's your take?
My blanket statement is that all gun laws are infringements, which I think everybody in this call probably agrees with. What part of shall not be infringed do these people not understand? And
they understand, they just don't hear it.
Yep.
They don't interpret it the way it's supposed to.
I understand that there's a malicious Marxist insurgency in this country, and it's effective, and they're well organized and well funded.
And let me add to what you were just saying. Just before we get on here, I was listening to I don't know, it was ABC or something, and there was a pro gun guy, and then there was the commentator, obviously anti-gun, and she read that exact statement, shall not be infringed. And she said, but that doesn't apply to, and it doesn't say anywhere in there that applies to, anyone under 21, which, their big thing now is they're trying to raise the age limit from 18 to 21. But my whole thing is it doesn't have any age. It says Americans, all Americans. Are 18-year-olds not Americans?
There's a wonderful expression that if you think it's time to bury your guns, it's actually time to dig them up. And I hold with that very strongly. And I'm done. And that doesn't mean that as a company, I won't follow the letter of the ATF
sure, absolutely.
regulations, because, some people get after me about that. And it's like, I could break the regulations and I would be shut down 2 days later, and then good Americans wouldn't have as many options for good weapons.
Absolutely.
And so my private opinions, what I just said was maybe fiery, but I don't think it's wrong. But that's about as much as I can really say on that. I believe very strongly in the right of people to make their own firearms. That's how I got going. We'll talk about that a little more later. Yeah. I built my first gun with Billy and Jim. And it was because at the time I was living in California, and there was gun registration on the books there. And at the time that I was home building, you could get around registration by building your own. And so I was making 80s from blanks in 2014, 2013. That used to be a really good idea. And now when I build for myself, I just buy serialized receivers because I'm in the free state of Idaho, and I don't have anything to hide, and I'm not about to give my guns up. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So all my stuff now is on serialized receivers, but I started out, I made my own welder out of a battery charger to do the rails, and we can talk about that in a bit too, but
okay, yeah.
I'm seriously about avoiding.
Of course you did.
Well, and there's YouTube instructionals on how to do it, so it's not like I came up with it or
with
anything,
a potato and an aquarium.
Because the self-defense is a human right. And I do not give a shit what a government has to say about it. That's not how rights work. Government doesn't define rights. They come from God and or nature or whatever, whatever you want to call it. But I have the right to defend myself, and that's not up for discussion. And so I heartily encourage people to learn how to maintain their guns. If government tyranny becomes even more overbearing, this kind of stuff is going to be really critical. And so even if people are just taking notes and thinking about how they would do this in the future, I think that's a really good thing. And it could be that in 6 months, Marty's not allowed to talk about how to build guns. And so people need to be taking notes.
You already can't do it on YouTube,
Right.
Yeah, it's
right.
already
so
it's already been in
Marty's
effect.
Bound by the same thing. Marty could break that rule, and then he would be off YouTube forever.
Which I don't give a shit about YouTube, and they've already... we did a 80% lower build on there one time, showed them how to do everything, and they banned that video. They just recently, like in the past 2 months or so, banned it. But yeah, They took it down.
Yeah, so I think this is critical information, and even like I said, I think people should really read up on this and think about investing in some tooling for dark days ahead.
Yeah, and that's one reason, why to build your own firearm. But again, in this country, historically, it's been legal. There's not been anything illegal about it, as long as you're not a felon, as long as you, and specifically with AKs, you follow the 922R compliance rules when you're building your home firearm. Then everything is honky dory. You're not selling them. You're building them for your own purpose, your own enjoyment. And that's something that I really enjoy doing on the ones that I've done, is just, the self gratification of I made something,
Totally.
As a man, just making something just has that sense of accomplishment. And, I did something really cool here. And especially when it's a firearm, it's just adds to it. And, it's therapeutic, it's very relaxing for me when I'm in my shop working on my guns. So, I mean, there's a lot of other benefits and reasons why people would do it other than, preparing for, the apocalypse or whatever. But again, it's great knowledge to have. And, that's what we're going to talk about today. Give you guys some great tips, tricks of the trade, tools that you're going to need, and, some other things. So let's kind of kick it off here. And I think probably is the 922R, just at a high level, go over that real quick, because we've done that in other episodes, but still for our new listeners, something that needs to be top of their mind when they're looking at doing a home build, would you say?
To my knowledge, nobody's ever been prosecuted for it, but we're in strange times, and it's not that hard to do.
Yeah. But if you know what it is, then you're going to know, all right, I can make my own judgment on what I need to do.
Yep. And there's some calculators that are easy to find on the internet, but the basic pitch is...
And this goes for foreign parts kits. So if it's made in America, you don't have to worry about this.
That's correct.
If all your parts
and if
are
it's
American.
a pistol, you don't have to worry about this. This is just long guns.
True.
So generally speaking, I make a really weird variety of gun in terms of how the AK normally goes. But if I remember right, if you swap out the piston and swap out your fire control group, you're pretty darn close right there. It can get hairy if you want to use original furniture, foreign magazines, and your piston. I don't think that's doable. So you change a few things and life's pretty easy.
So what's that number? What's that magic number that they've got?
Around 6 for a stamp receiver.
Say again?
What I was told. Say
it again, Billy?
It should be around 6 U.S. made parts for a stamped receiver.
Yeah, it can be 6 or 7 depending on the firearm. Some AKs have different features that others do not. Such as like the Segas, they only needed 6 when they came in. But like, say you were building off a parts kit, you would need 7 on some, because they count bayonet lugs. So if your gun doesn't have a bayonet lug, that's a point that's not there. So that's where the difference typically, I'm not going to say always, because as everyone here knows with AKs, there's no always answer.
Right. With milled receivers, I believe there's 4 parts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it changes between, but typically 6 to 7. And then, I mean, a lot of people don't realize it also applies to things like SKSs. It applies to anything. So, but
anything imported foreign wise. Yeah.
But you want to be careful.
That's a long gun.
That's a long gun,
it's
not a pistol.
Pistols. Yeah.
So, but you do want to be careful because, I mean, a U.S. manufactured magazine counts as 3 parts. But if you use a foreign magazine in the gun, you violate the 922R compliance. So Brian's correct. You want to try to do internal parts, but what you can do is the fire control group counts as 3 parts. The actual muzzle, the threaded muzzle device, you can literally just take off your foreign-made slant brake and screw on a U.S.-made, like, $4 slant brake. That takes away a point as well. So there you got 4. Piston makes 5, and then your furniture can be 1, 2, 3. It's very, very easy to comply. It's not.
Of course, the receiver is going to be American because it comes in cut. Same thing with the barrel. The barrel's cut. What, two places they have to cut the barrel?
Yeah, most good parts kits don't even have the cut up barrel in them anymore.
Just don't even include it.
No.
And the one thing to prevent confusion for our listeners when they go to actually do this worksheet. Correct me if I'm wrong, Billy and Andrew, but I think it's the maximum. It's actually the maximum allowable. Even though we think about subtracting parts, it's really about the maximum allowable count of foreign parts.
That's
and
the
so
number,
if
yeah.
you guys are getting confused, remembering back on this, just remember that the law is upside down from the way most of us think about it.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah,
is
definitely go back and listen to that 922 R compliance episode that Marty did. He'll post that episode. What number that was?
Yeah, I don't know what it is right off, but if you just go to my website and search AK Corner with a K, some of you still don't realize that it's a K for the corner, and that's okay. But yeah, you'll find it definitely. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. And there's web pages and there's videos and things, and our podcast. You can go back and listen to that to get the full details on that, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Because I know what more people are interested in are, how do I do it? What's your tips and tricks? So with that, I guess, hey, you've got in mind, it's like, hey, I want to build my own AK. What's going to be involved with this? It's not like an AR. You ever built an AR-15? Not even in the same game. It's a completely different sport. I would compare it as, because
Yeah, totally.
you got to have a lot of tools, a lot of skills, and patience. And that's the key, right, Andrew? Patience.
Yeah, patience, and it does require some skill.
Yeah, got to have some skills.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll quote Ernest Hemingway here that all first drafts are shit. And he was sort of the master of minimalist prose, right? And your first AK is going to be a total friggin' turd. And so my advice would be to get over yourself and do it. And you will be a better operator and a better armorer at the end of it. And you're going to be putting in your time. But it takes several guns to get to where you could, really call it a fighting gun and not, hey, this is a thing I made and it's an art project.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. There's a difference there.
And as you say that too, some people are just saying, hey, I just want to build, one. I just want to do one. And if you look at the money that's involved with doing that to get the right tools and all that, it's going to be way expensive. You're going to spend way over $2,000 in just the tools and things that you need to build one, AK from a parts kit. So I'm not trying to discourage anybody by any means.
Honest conversation.
Honest conversation, right. But there are different stages that you can buy completeness of AKs too, to where maybe you don't want to do a complete one, but maybe you buy, and like Andrew was talking before, there's folded receivers too, versus an 80 versus you could buy a complete receiver.
Get your rails welded in, everything.
Right. So I would recommend, if it's your first one, get the complete receiver. Do that route first, because you're going to have a tough enough time with everything else. Because heat treating, you got to heat treat and do all that. And I just, nah.
TIG weld.
Right. So where do you think the next logical step would be in talking about maybe looking for the parts kits that you want?
I think honestly, you should probably invest in the tooling first. You know what I mean? Just so, I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a parts kit, but a lot of times I've met a lot of people that bought parts kits and said, I don't think I could do this, and they end up selling it. So, but once you have the tools, it feels like you're already committed.
Yeah.
And so the cost on the tools it can be pretty high for individual, but I always tell people, get a group of people, do a group buy, share the tools. At least just get started from that point.
Yeah.
But with the cost of parts kits, all over the place and going up, and it might not be a bad idea to buy a parts kit. Or
depending on how the law is, you buy the tools and then you sell them to the other people. Because isn't there like a law that says that you have to use your own tools, and I don't know how that works. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I mean I don't know.
So, when we're doing the AK build classes with Rifle Dynamics, one of the snags we came across was doing classes in different states, because they're saying that basically that we were manufacturing outside our licenses jurisdiction. And we did everything legally. We sent receivers out, people to FFLs. They got a background check on the receiver so that we would just show up and they'll bring their registered receivers and build the guns. So, like most things with the ATF, it's a lot of times it's mostly about money. They want to know who we need to charge that excise tax to, know, and so it's
revenue generator.
Right. And so
and examples. They want to make examples out of people too.
So I think as far as just having tools, the weird thing is I think if I didn't have FFL, I can go and teach that class, no problem. You know what I mean? But since I have one, there's all these extra rules that, basically they want to know who to tax.
Yeah.
So I think as an individual, if you were to buy the tools and you can sell them with no problem, they're not a firearm, and so.
Yeah. Let's talk about the tools that they need. I'm getting into this. I've got my AR tools. I build ARs. Can I use any of my AR stuff?
I mean,
punch kit, maybe my punches.
Maybe your punches, unless they're some trashy ones that bend really easily, or.
Oh no, these are good ones. These are Obsidian arms. These are from Obsidian.
Well, if they're roll pin punches, again, the answer is no. If they've got the ball on the end of them, which is pretty common on the AR-15 stuff, that's a no-go too.
Yeah, I don't mean you got a hammer. You can use that.
There you go. My rubber hammer. Bam, bam.
Yeah, your rubber hammer. Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of that would translate over, really.
So let's talk about the tools realistically that you're going to need.
So I've been in the game for quite some time, and I've seen the AK market change quite a bit.
Well, let's do that, because we didn't do that, Billy, and I'm sorry. Let's talk about your background. Let's let people know, because you used to be with Rifle Dynamics. You were one of the OGs at Rifle Dynamics. So let's talk about that real quick. Sorry about that.
Okay. Just quickly, basically, I started Rifle Dynamics at the end of 2008, early 2009. And basically, during that time, it was just parts kits builds at the time as well. So I was hired on as piecework, and where I would just demill parts kits. So, I would come in every day for a couple hours, demill 10, 20 parts kits, go home in a couple hours. And after, a month and a half, I probably did every single parts kit in the shop, probably, 500-600 of them. And so after that, they offered me a job there. At that point, I've never actually built an AK. I just shot maybe an AK once or twice, built a couple ARs, and then started from the very bottom. It was sandblasting parts kits, parkerizing them. And then I was always just a fast learner and, learn how to build them, learn how to paint them. And so within 2 years of working there, I became a production manager. And then 2 years after that, they made me partner at the company. And so it was Jim. So we figured you were on Arizona time, Jim. So
there he is. What's up, brother? You're muted.
I think you're muted, Jim.
Like, fuck it.
I can't hear you. I can't.
You're muted.
Your microphone's not working or something. Nope. You're not muted. It must be your microphone. What, are you on your phone or laptop? Laptop?
Still can't hear you.
Let me do this. Let me call you.
You can just put your phone up to the microphone.
No, that's not going to work. Maybe I can walk him through it.
Would it look better if he tried on his phone or something?
So he's rebooting. He's going to reboot his computer, guys. Might be an update or something, maybe for your browser. Maybe it needed. Okay, if it does that, then we can try the phone.
All right, let me try this on the phone here. I'm going to hang up here and I'll call you back.
Roger that.
I'll see if it works in here.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, if it doesn't work, I'll call you back.
Okay, bye. He's going to try to get on with his phone. Still not working. Must be your internal mic on your laptop. Must be an Apple. Fucking Apple. Yep. That's what it is.
Oh, we're talking about guns. Apple's not going to let him do that.
That's right. You've been flagged by Apple. Commie bastards. If you just click on that link, it should, from your phone, it should. Okay. End the session on your computer. So it should connect you through the browser. Brian, you got some workers going on right now? You doing some shit in the background?
No, I've been on mute actually.
No, I mean in your shop. You got your shop running right now?
Oh yeah. Everybody's gone home for the day, but yeah, right now we're just running kind of 1.5 shifts. We were running almost 3 shifts for quite a while. But I got a great crew here, and yeah, we're able to keep up with things. Yeah, we've been making, we're making RD trunnions and a contract job that I'm not allowed to say what it is, but other parts for another outfit. Cool. And let's see, on the laser right now is we're lasering folding stocks that are about to go out for anno. And then I've got a batch. We closed down orders for a while. I'm working on clearing that backlog, and I've got 4 guns that just came back from reliability that are about to go into paint. We've got 3 new products about to drop. Some tools that'll actually, they're kind of perfect for this conversation, but they're advanced tools.
Uh-huh.
They're for swaging. Billy will I need to send a couple out to Billy. It's a series of tools that make the magazine catch installation really easy. And the nice way to tune, while we're waiting here, the nice way to tune your mag catch, which if you're working on a surplus kit, you probably won't have to do. But the commie spec is actually quite tight on that latch. I think it's 20 thousandths is the max amount of allowable slop for the mag to rattle. The easy way to do it is to file it or belt sand it a little bit of time outside the gun. If you have to do it inside the gun because you don't have the ability to re-swage that pin, the best way that I've found, I'd be interested to hear Billy's method, is to take a belt sander belt and tear it so that it will fit over the mag latch, and then you can kind of shoe shine it. That has a problem where it tends to kind of be cupped in the middle and leave 2 kind of fangs on the edges. Far and away, it's best to just, in my mind, to drill that pin, do it a little bit at a time, get it right, and then swage it back in. And it's a bit like installing springs in your car. You have to compress that spring to do the install job. So one of these tools is a really simple way to compress that spring, and the other one swages the rivet. It's a funny rivet. It's almost what's called a hollow rivet, but it's a chunk of steel that's a cylinder of steel that has 2 drill pecks, like 90 degree or something like that, cones cut into each end. And then you take ball bearings in the tool we have, and I think probably in the commie tool as well. And then you crush the tips of those inverted cones to capture that axis pin in the trigger guard.
Mm-mm.
So I can hear you on the phone. So this is your phone right now. You're on.
You can hear me now?
No, just through the phone. I think the government's got you blocked, man. They don't want you getting the knowledge out. That's weird. That is weird because it wouldn't work on his laptop. It's not working on his phone. Let's see. I'll just make sure it's not anything because all you guys are coming in. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know what else to do. I've opened up my phone here. I've got a VU meter that shows me that it's picking up my voice into the phone. So it's picking my voice up. The microphone is working. I've done the same thing on the laptop. The microphone is working. I can see it picking up my voice as I'm talking to the VU meter.
Yeah.
Somehow you guys can't get it. I can see everything. I can hear you guys fine. I don't know what's wrong. I apologize.
Oh, no apologies necessary, buddy.
It's just
Technology, man. It's
I
just
just don't know what else to do. I mean, I've checked everything that's possible, and everything here says it's working. So I don't know what to say.
yeah. I don't know. I'm at a loss. This has never happened before. So sorry, man. If you figure it out, like I said, jump on. We'll be on here for a little bit longer, and if not, I'll get you.
Recording this tonight. It's not live.
No, it's not live. We're recording it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't realize. I thought this was a live thing.
No, I don't ever do live. You know that shit.
Well, I mean,
Just because of this instance right now. Because you never know what the fuck's gonna happen. So.
Well, I don't know what else to say, man. I really wanted to do this, guys, with you. And I'm sorry because you passed a couple of times. I couldn't do it the last few times you wanted me on. And I apologize that I can't seem to get there this time.
I'm gonna have more.
I talked to Billy too. I don't even talk to Billy hardly that much either.
Yeah. Well, we're disappointed, but like I said, if you figure it out, if not, don't worry about it. Relax, and I'll get you on another one. We got a lot of good stuff coming up in episodes.
Well, I apologize, guys. I'm sorry.
No, man, I'm sorry.
Everybody, my love.
We'll do. If you want to sit on and listen to us, you're more than welcome.
All right, man.
All right, bud. See ya. All right, bye.
Catch you later.
Thanks. All right. That is odd. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
Well, I was really looking forward to getting you two to talking about the good old days. That would have been fun.
We can come back on.
So Jim may figure it out. He may not. But we're sorry our audio was not working. I don't know what the problem was. I'll have to do some research and figure out what was going on so that doesn't happen again. But that's the first time that's happened. Usually, if you reboot and start it, it kicks right up. So, but you were saying we're talking about your Rifle Dynamic days.
Yeah, so I was I was at Rifle Dynamics till summer of 2015, and then I left and became a director at Radiant Weapons for about 3 years, and then I left there in January 2018 and started my own company at that point. And so I've been throughout the entire, I guess the cultural shift between in the late 2008, 2009 time, 2010, it was always like AK versus AR, and no one gave a shit about the AK, and there was hardly any tools to build these things. So when I started RD, Jim had made his own tools, and so he made his own trigger guard riveting jig, and his own other riveting jigs and things like that, barrel press stuff. And then slowly later on, you just start seeing other companies come out with more, efficient tools. They had tools that like the bolt cutter, rivet squishing thing. And so they also had, a whole variety of, tools that people are making on their own. And some of them, they weren't even companies.
Yeah.
And some random tool guy will make a run of 100 barrel removal jigs and sell those, and once they break, the guy's not making them anymore, or then I saw the iteration of AK Builder coming out with their tools, and Robert Phobos came out after that with a bunch of tools. And so
those seem to be the two go-to.
I just kind of seen it all, and I
Phobos.
just saw a lot of this, distributors that used to carry tools, and they're no longer around. Like Hope's Distributing, they were a big company back then. A lot of people don't shop with them anymore. Same thing with Carolina Shooter Supply. They had a lot of Saiga conversion stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He just launched a new website.
What was that?
He just launched his new website the other day.
Who?
Carolina Shooters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they've been good guys, and you know, so I just seen the whole iteration of like, you know, people like, I only shoot ARs, I only shoot, you know, AKs, and the AK was like the redheaded stepchild, you know, and you know, they weren't easy to build, so nobody was making tools for them. So yeah, I kind of saw the iteration of all the tools, and now, you know, just the popularity of, you know, social media guys and all that. You know, the AK is super popular, and everyone has one along with an AR, and everyone just kind of shoots both, and you know, it's kind of really come full circle.
Yeah, and you know, that's something we talked about in past episodes, is the surgence of the AK. You know, the increasing popularity of the AK, because like you said, when you guys were kind of in the beginning stages back, you know, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was the redheaded stepchild. It was the communist gun, you know, get that commie shit out of here, you know, kind of attitude. And it's drastically changed with obviously the advent of social media, but through movies as well. Because in the day, the AK was the bad guy weapon. But you're seeing more and more, even in the movies and TV shows, you know, the AK, especially, you know, this movie, you know, Red Dawn, even though it was the bad guy weapon, the good guys were using it. You know, they used it against the bad guys. So,
yeah, I just thought about this morning. My first AK 32 years ago.
32 years ago. You still have it?
Hell yeah, I still have it.
You still have it? Nice.
Yeah, it's a Polytech underfolder spiker.
Nice.
Got it for my 12th birthday.
Happy 12th birthday.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And now they're changing the laws to you got to be 21.
Well, I mean, I got it for my dad for my birthday. You know, obviously, I didn't.
I guarantee you walked into J.C. Penney's and you bought that AK back in the day.
Man, you'd be surprised how some of those department stores.
Sears and Roebuck.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. It's awesome that you still have it. We'll have to have you show it off one episode.
You've shot it before, Marty.
Oh, I have?
My Chinese spiker?
Oh, yeah, I've shot that one, yeah. It was a delight. But we're going to get into the tools. We want to talk about the tools. And, you know, I think you're going to have to get a whole new toolbox, you know, a whole new workbench to house your AK tools, because you're going to need a lot of them.
Built my first AK in my brother's shop. He's a mechanic. I used a bearing press that I completely moved and took apart and put back together in different angles to press my first barrels. Yeah, I had no tools. I just literally just found everything in a shop, like a mechanic shop.
Yeah, and that's the thing with, you know, with AKs, you know, gunsmithing. I mean, you really need to be a blacksmith. You need to be a mechanic. You got to, you know, all these different tricks of the trade. But that's the thing about the AKs is, you know, for the tools, people will makeshift their own tools to get the job done. And the durability of this weapon, this firearm, you know, allows for a lot of fudge factors when it comes to the making and milling of these. But not
like
milling,
Billy was saying, Marty, that was the only option back in the day.
Yeah,
nobody made AK specific tools. Like, you had to make your own tools. You just took a bunch of shit and figured it out.
Yeah,
and that's why your first couple were really bad.
And, you know, learning all those skills with, you know, making your own tools, that just makes you like a incredible machinist and a fabricator at that point, you know? And so a lot of that just kind of directly translates to everything else I was doing later on in my life. And so I pretty much learned everything over there. Learned how to run a lathe and a mill, learn how to TIG weld, you know, MIG weld, stick weld, whatever. And, you know, learn how to paint and all that. And so, you know, a lot of that stuff, you know, I did work for a high-end AR company, right? And so, you know, seeing those parts come out, those $500,000 machines, and they're like almost perfect, where you can just sandblast and then Cerakote them. It was just like, it was a new learning experience from coming from basically, I felt like the caveman, and I traveled into the future, you know, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't have Band-Aids all over the place wherever you cut yourself and bleed, you know? And so it's
Bang your thumb.
definitely was, you know, a different time that basically, you know, built character and taught me skills, you know. And so, you know, really do feel like you get a lot more out of building AKs. And I mean, there's been AK builders that, you know, just stopped and decided to build motorcycles, and that those skills just directly, you know, transferred to any kind of fabrication you can imagine.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you got automotive people. You know, John Houghton with M13. Yeah, he was in the automotive industry, and now he's building AKs. You know?
Right.
So it kind of goes both ways with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what Billy's talking about is so true. It should be scripture. It probably is somewhere. I did an apprenticeship as a violin maker, and I use a ton of those skills in AK building. It's a very similar thing. Sheet metal and wood are close cousins because they don't do what you want them to do. You know, sheet metal is going to bend and twist and do all kinds of weird stuff over time, as does wood. And there's maybe the general heading would be manual literacy, the ability to do stuff with your hands. And that would be a fantastic reason. Are you missing a finger, Andrew? Did I just see that? Oh, it just looked like it. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's a rare thing. And yeah, no, like with people that have been in the trades a long time, it's pretty common to have somebody missing a digit at a minimum. And so that would be another reason to be getting into this, is to just get yourself acquainted with some really critical skills that are being lost in our culture today that are widely transferable and applicable. You know, a big part of what you do when you screw up your first few is you're learning feel. And if you had a bunch of instrumentation to know how many pounds you were putting on stuff, you wouldn't need that feel. But when you're just sensing the feedback, you know, for instance, on a bearing press, which is the easiest way to break everything with an AK, what Billy has in his fingers is thousands of cycles of feeling the back pressure of the hydraulic fluid pushing on the pump, which then translates into the lever, which translates back into his fingers. And so he's just like we learn how to throw a ball and we build, that's actually a fairly complicated equation. It's quadratic for the math. Well, the math nerds already know that, but it's a nonlinear equation. It's complicated. And we do that with our brains without knowing how we do it. And you do the same thing when you're pulling on that lever on the bearing press. You're actually building that same computation into your neurons.
Well,
Sorry, Billy, I'll let you continue, but I think what you're poking at is a really big deal that is one of the biggest reasons to go out and build an AK or anything else in the first place.
Right. And, you know, before that, you know, I didn't really come from that kind of background. And, you know, I worked on cars a little bit and I was pretty handy. And, yeah, basically it was just like I fell in love with making stuff at that point. Right. And so it's, you know, that, again, directly translated to me becoming a fabricator, becoming, you know, a knife maker. And I'm really fascinated even today about, you know, just seeing people make stuff with a mastery, you know, and again, that's a skill and that's the thing that, you know, is going away. And, you know, I told you, Lefty, that basically that I don't watch any YouTube gun videos. I don't watch any YouTube knife videos because it just drives me crazy. It feels like I'm taking my work home with me.
Yeah.
I watch YouTube. I watch people fall down on YouTube. I watch people, you know.
I don't watch YouTube at all, you know. I just.
Right. I read comics. You know.
Yeah, we were talking about that. We got that in common. We're both comic geeks.
And, you know, I'm a big nerd at heart. But whenever I watch YouTube, I watch an old Japanese man making a comb by hand or, you know, someone putting together an engine or anything that's not gun related, but that's a masterful work. I'm just addicted to.
Yeah.
And
I want to get away from it when I'm on my own time, you know.
Right.
I mean, there are some things that I want to do to improve and keep educating myself, obviously. Right. But when I just want to kick back, relax, you know, I'm into conspiracy theories and UFOs and comic books and, you know, stuff like that. But let's talk about tools. I want to get into tools because people need to know tools. So let's talk about what tools they gotta have to do an AK. Let's keep it minimum type, and then we can talk about other things that would be nice to have if you got the extra dough, because you're getting into parts kits nowadays are you could have bought them for $300 5 years ago. Now they're up to $600, $500 $600 for a parts kit, which you could could buy a complete rifle for that, but those days are gone. And I don't think we're ever going to get back there as far as the parts kits go, or even the rifles, because the AK has just become so popular nowadays. I don't think we're ever going to see that. But for people who want to get into it again for the self-enjoyment and the fulfillment of making something with your own hands, and especially a weapon like the AK, it's art. I call it artwork too. It's artwork like the AK. What do they got to have? What bare minimum tools? Let's go through. What would you say?
Drill press, right? At least, unless maybe your stuff already has holes, but still, you probably would still need to get a drill press. Depending on what tools you need, you want to get a bearing press from, the cheapest place would probably be Harbor Freight, a 12-ton.
12-ton, because you don't want to get too much pressure on there when you're doing that.
Right.
Because you
right.
really
so that's just reason why you need a drill press, so you can drill out those screwed up rivets that you did the first time, right? And so you probably want to get probably the easiest way to build stuff right now is probably getting the AK Builder riveting fixtures and barrel press stuff.
Definitely need a barrel press. Definitely need a barrel press.
Right. And so you're probably going to be into it probably a good $1,200 or so, depending on what kind of drill press you get. A more solid drill press would be a lot better, because if you have a Harbor Freight drill press, they have like that table that is essentially the flat part where you put, your fixture or whatever, your AK receiver, and a lot of the cheaper ones, the Chinese ones, will have a lot of flex on them. So if you try to drill it, it'll cock to the right or the left, no matter how hard you tighten it down. So, a heavier work table right there on your drill press will benefit you.
Yeah.
So,
and spend a little extra on your drill press, just like you said, so you don't get that, that sway and whatnot.
So all my drill presses I currently own, they're from like the 1950s.
Solid, probably pieces of machinery.
Oh, if it fell down on me, I'd be dead, right? So, crush me in a heartbeat. And they made things differently back then, right? Super solid. So go on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, look for a more robust drill press, and then everything else you can be easily bought with modern stuff today.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of other tools out there. I mean,
but what's essential? I mean, obviously you need the barrel press, you need the hydraulic for the hydraulic 12-ton press. What about if you screw up the barrel to get the barrel out?
Right. So you're gonna need some headspace gauges as well. There's a bunch of people that make them, right? Pacific is one. Manson, and I think Climber is another one. And so you can get all those at Brownells.
Probably AK Builder has that stuff too.
Right. So then, you need a different barrel press. Robert Phobos has one with a barrel press for basically if you already riveted up, you don't need to, take your front turning out to take the barrel out. That design actually was based off another person that made it a long time ago. One of those guys I talked about, where they basically made a run of tools and they stopped making them. And so Robert, I guess, saw a need and he started making his own version of that. You also need a barrel pin press. And so most of the stuff you can get from either Robert or AK Builder.
Yeah, so I've got, from our viewing audience, I've got that Phobos website pulled up here. It looks like
this is based off if you aren't making your own receivers, right? And you're not welding your receiver. You're buying maybe currently 80 percenters or full serialized receivers and things like that. So there's also the option of buying guns, that are pre-Headspace, like Arms of America. They sell kits that are pre-Headspace. So, but what I've noticed is, like, with a lot of those kits, sometimes whenever you do check the Headspace after everything's built, it might be a little bit too tight. So that's why it's good to have Headspace gauges. So
punch set,
right? So something nice and hard. I use Starrett punches myself. And sometimes, it's good to like get a bunch of, 1/8 inch or 3/32 Starrett punches and cut them to different lengths. So you can have a starter punch to knock out, your gas block and front sight pins. And then just gradually get larger and larger as you drive the pins out, because those pins can be super stubborn.
What about jigs? What kind of jigs you going to need? Rivet jigs?
Right.
Gas block jigs?
Yeah. Right. So you can, the gas block jig, I don't think it's really necessary. You can use just like a bench block, or you can make your own, if you're at that point, or, use because I realized that those bench blocks for the gas block might not necessarily fit, as many guns or different variants of guns, and it might not be worth the cost. So if you have a bench block, or if you make a bench block out of a hockey puck or whatever, that might be, a good way to save money. Again, you can also buy guns that have all those blocks and front sights already populated on there. And, instead of having to deal with it. I mean, Brian used to make a rear sight tower that had a 1913 rail built on top, and, correct me if I'm wrong, it was just hard finding people able to install that themselves, right? And
that's correct. We still make it. It's actually gotten more popular over time. But yeah, most folks, I made the mistake of thinking everybody else was working on their AKs as well at home like I was, and that's just not the reality. And anybody who thinks they've got a great AK part, that'd be my friendly advice. And I try to preface, anytime anybody brings a nice part to me, I tell them, hey, I'm going to be super rude, and it's because I want to be nice to you. And it's that any part that requires any sort of gunsmithing, automatically you're looking at 1 to 3% of the total AK market is going to have any interest in that at all. It's a vanishingly small group of people, and that's cool because they're my people, and I love building parts for them. But it's not the road to riches. That's for damn sure.
It's not for the mass market.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And I just held up an example of your rear sight tower. We had it installed on this one.
Right.
As I said, I had it installed. I did not install that myself. I took it to a professional gunsmith that did that, and he cussed me.
It dog cuss you a little bit, but it's a killer piece. I love it. Still one of my favorite.
It's a great product. It's just that, there's people at the time, hopefully that changes as, it seems like it's changing, that more people are trying to build these at home. And it's a quality product, and it's just too soon, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've been shockingly early on a bunch of stuff, and that's got upsides and downsides to it. It's definitely starting to roll in a different way now.
Brian, as far as tools go, to add anything to what Billy's talked about already, what any tools that you would add to that list? Yeah,
I'll be rude in the face of Billy's politeness. I think if you're my first advice would be take a build class from one of the quality builders out there. Like, gosh, there's a bunch. I think Jim teaches private classes, and I built we got to show this. I was hoping to do it when Jim was on, but this is my build certificate from 2014, and there's Billy, and there's Jim there.
Little Brian's graduation document there.
Yeah, and that would be my overwhelming advice, because Jim was super kind to me and let me video. and copy dimensions from all of his tooling down into a notebook that I still have. And he said that if I ever shared it on the internet, that it would ruin it for everybody. So I never have, but it's really good. If Jim's listening right now and he wants that video, it's really good lecture stuff. And I've still got it squirreled away here. And it was also the class when Casey Chu and Karen built their first guns. Yeah, it was a good class. That would be it's way cheaper to just pay the money on the class and you get a gun at the end of the deal.
I'm glad you brought that up because
yourself.
Yeah, that's something that would help a lot of these home builders if before you start getting into it. It's going to save you a lot of headache and heartache, and just take one of those build classes. And they're offered all around the country. So, check your local firearms gun store, armor. I think Royal Range does some occasionally. They're actually starting to build their own line of AKs. So that's going to be an upcoming episode because I'm actually going to go there and I'm going to build one with them. And we're going to do one of the episodes doing that. Andrew, you're going to go with me to do that too. So,
on the calendar, bro, I am very heavily booked through October.
Yeah, you'll make room for this.
The second thing I'd second Billy on is going with a pre-populated barrel. Doing barrel population, which is to say putting on the rear sight block, the handguard retainer, and the gas block, and then the front sight block. That's more trouble than you want your first time out of the gate. So what Billy was saying, yes, you do need to check Headspace because it's not always right. That's a real thing. And then, after you start populating, there's a real hazard when you're pushing a barrel in after it's been populated of bending the barrel. And so you want to go easy, anti-seize, get a book, get videos, that kind of thing. So you know what you're doing. But if you're working with an unpopulated barrel, Robert sells a series of chromoly tubes that slide over the journals and stack up, and it lets you press on where the barrel necks down after it comes out of the trunnion. Takes the pressure off the barrel. Yep. And so if you're going to be populating barrels from scratch, that's the method that I subscribe to wholeheartedly is don't press on the muzzle if you don't have to. Use a penny or both Robert and AK Builder make a brass piece that goes into the muzzle to protect it. That's a critical thing, but a penny works fine. Robert also makes two bars that are just cut down 1 1/4 steel stock that go crossways on the hydraulic press. And then he makes these barrel press plates that go 90 to that have yokes for all the different, for those on video, they have U's or yokes cut in at different diameters that correspond to the different journals. Those vary, as Billy was saying, depending on what country made it and whether it's an RPK or an M72 or an AKM or whatever. Billy, my personal opinion is that people right out of the gate should just be building a straight ahead AKM for their first gun. That's a Eurocom, like a Polish, German, Russian, maybe Czech. I don't know or the Slovak ones. I don't know. I don't recommend those kits necessarily, but would you say straight ahead, no Yugos, no China stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. I would say, older Russian stuff's fine, but you want to get stuff that's kind of, if it's your first, you don't want to spend a lot of money on like a Tula Kring kit and have to buy specialty tools that will accommodate the parts for that Tula Kring. So
Romanian
you're very used with something that's like a Romanian kit.
Yep.
Or, a Romy G kit even that already has a barrel in there. And so, yeah, definitely for sure. I agree with that.
Cool. So then, the AK Builder, a lot of people call it the Trapeze Rig. It's for riveting the front and rear trunnions. And then the AK Builder trigger guard rivet set, that's a different block. Robert Forbes's barrel push out tool. Robert Forbes's push in tool, which is like I think that's the one Billy was referring to that looks like a letter T with some funny cutouts in it. what else? A lot of, dehorning and dulling the parts before they ever go together. And that's just sandpaper, like whatever, 80 grit, 120, somewhere in there.
Anything else for the barrel?
Well, no, I mean, the Headspace gauges, you need a pick. The method, I haven't done pre-Headspace guns in a very long time, but when I was doing it, I really liked the method Jim taught me. Well, Jim and Billy together. When they're sliding the barrel in, they're looking through the barrel pin hole, and there's sort of a canoe shape cut into the barrel, and you need to slide that in until it matches with the circular hole in the trunnion. And the way that you can tell when you're on right is you want to sharpen the tip of the pick and bend a 45 into it. And they make picks like this already. But my favorite one was a fish hook, a large saltwater hook that had good steel that was already sharp. And I managed to sharpen it more. And you want a very fine point on the edge of that thing. And you want to wipe it back and forth across where the barrel meets with the canoe of the barrel meeting with the hole of the in the trunnion until you can't feel it catching anymore on that seam. And that's as good as you're going to do for getting it back to where the original gunsmith intended it to be head-spaced. And then you push the pin in on a barrel pin press plate. I prefer Roberts, but the AK Builder one is very good. Roberts works for everything, like Billy was indicating. And Robert makes all of those tools on little manual machines in his basement. And it's the essence of America and what made America great. And I think AK Builder stuff is all made in America as well. It's just that I have a personal relationship with Robert, and I can confirm this, septuagenarian master German machinist is making your tooling, with little elves and stuff. And I just think that's metal as you can get. So I'm kind of biased that way, but AK Builder stuff is much more reasonably priced, and as far as I know, made in America as well. So, either way, you're winning.
And to add on to Brian, when he's talking about Robert's, barrel removal tool, I've bought a couple of those and modified them to work for Saiga 12s or, a plethora of different Comblock style guns. And so, they're good starting points too if you want to start making your own tools.
Wholeheartedly agree. You need to learn, everybody needs to learn how to be comfortable editing tools. Like when a screwdriver wears out, it should not go in the garbage. You need to get out a map torch and turn that into a booger picker of some stripe or another. And for those who have done side folders, there's 3 really critical tools you have to make to install a side folder. The spring D10 and some other stuff, and the D10 up front. And all 3 of those tools I made out of screwdrivers. And you can't even buy what I've made, but it's not rocket surgery.
Can't buy it, but you can make it.
It's sort of like evolution. Like, just let the tool evolve. When it doesn't work, make a little tweak.
Well, that's something that's going to happen as people get into these and doing more of them. If they get into doing more than one, is they're going to figure out that I'm going to need something, or I could use this to solve this problem that I'm having. But I guess we're not really up to we're novice level right now is kind of what we're talking to. So we're not up in the advanced level. But I mean, we've got advanced listeners, they may want to get a little bit more advice, on things like that. But they can always get in touch with Brian or Billy through the social medias, Insta messaging or whatever that's called, and the website through your emails. You don't have a website though, do you, Billy?
It's actually currently under construction. Yeah.
Okay.
So
but they can get you on the.
He's that famous, folks.
The grams.
But going back to what Brian was saying, I would say first and foremost, really take a class, because all of this really sounds alien, right? When, Brian talks about a canoe inside where the barrel pin goes, I could picture it in my mind, but to someone else, they're like, what the hell is he talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so I would really, really recommend taking a class with an expert. They'll teach you, things that they spend years refining and finding hacks to, and so it just makes it 10 times easier at that point.
Yeah.
And so
let's get into the parts kit itself. I think we spent enough time on the tools, just kind of high level there. But there's a plethora of tools that you're going to need. And like I said, you're probably going to drop over $1,000 on tools if you're not making them yourself or don't know how to do that yourself. And we didn't even get into the flat receivers. You know, if you're going to be doing your own receiver 80%ers, there's a whole other set of tools that you're going to need for that also. So that just compounds and adds to it. But the parts kit itself, talk about what people need to be looking for in a parts kit. It's like, okay, I'm online, I'm looking at, is this a good parts kit? You know, what are they looking for?
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things, Marty. Some people are buying them for the collectability or for the authenticity.
Okay.
That's why a lot of people buy parts kits, because they want a gun that they can't buy. You know, you can't get certain firearms in the United States imported. The only way you can get them is with a parts kit, and then you can build them. So I think there's a large group of people that get into it for that very specific reason.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Now with the prices of them, used to when I was young, in my late teens, early 20s, we built parts kits because you could buy a parts kit for $70. With a barrel. Until 2005, they all came with barrels. So it was a lot different style back then. But now people are there. You can literally buy a parts kit. You can buy a brand new AK for what a parts kit costs. So people are doing that a lot of reasons because they want a specific type of gun. Less nowadays to save money, more because they want a specific gun they can't get.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add, basically, I deal with a lot of high-end clientele, just same with probably Jim. And, my guns definitely are not cheap, but people come to me for, building these expensive parts kits, rare parts kits. And so there's different levels to it. Most of the time people will say, hey, why does a Russian kit cost more than a Romanian? And a lot of times that's basically, there's a couple of reasons, right? One would be the mystique of having a Russian thing, right? So people have this common misconception that Russian things are better, where, not necessarily true. A competent builder can build a Romanian parts kit, MD63 kit, the most common one you can find. And it'll be as accurate, as reliable as, a $5,000 Russian parts kit. So a lot of that has to deal with collectability of it. Like, Andrew was saying, basically, it's kind of nice knowing that whenever you invest in a more expensive parts kit, like a Russian kit or whatever, East German, something super rare, that, you can justify it to your spouse saying, hey, this is expensive, but in 10 years, it could be worth double, right? And what makes things more expensive is the scarcity and the rarity of these parts, right? And so I always tell people it's a great investment because, first off, you can justify the purchase because anything that's, it's sad to say, anything that's really made in the States, like any AR you can imagine, it's really, they don't really go up in price, right? It's always foreign stuff, right? HKs, transferable machine guns, but AKs have constantly the parts have just constantly gone higher and higher and higher and higher. And so it's a good investment to invest in a more expensive parts kit for sure, especially, if you're looking for something like that. And I always tell people, even though you say, let's say, spend $3,000 on a rare parts kit, you can shoot the piss out of it. And, hardly anything will wear out once it's, if it's built correctly. You put a new barrel in there, replace a couple springs, you'll have a brand new gun, right? At the end of it, when at RD, Jim had this famous little crank off, this little AK-74U that he built in the garage. And that, that was there when I started, and we would just dump, spam can after spam can out of that thing, 7 and 6. People would line up like it's like a buffet and just dump a mag into the back of the line, dump a mag. The thing was smoking. I'm not even sure how many barrels I had at the point where he retired it. But the sum of those parts are worth an incredible amount of money, even though it's even if it's on his 4th barrel or 100,000 rounds.
Sure. The
parts still go up, and it's kind of crazy. So, when you want to start with your first build, start with a more cheaper kit, Romanian. I would stay away from the Yugoslavian, Serbian stuff because a lot of times they're not parts compatible. What I mean by that is, if you have a 1.5 millimeter requirement for a Chinese gun or a Yugo or whatever, you can't just find a Romanian bolt and throw it in there or a bolt carrier and so you want to find parts that are somewhat compatible where you can have replacement parts or be able to fix it. And so it all depends on what you want to do with the gun as well. So if you want to make it a more collectible piece, spend more money on a more expensive parts kit. You probably won't lose your investment. If you just wanted something to plink around and you don't care, you just want a good shooter, build something off a Romanian kit. And so what's available today seems mostly like it's going to be the Romanian kits. There's some Russian kits out there. Some people are smuggling stuff in, whatever. I'm not sure where they're coming from. There's Polish kits out there as well. And so those are the three main kits as far as 7.62 kits that are available. And if you talk about 545, it's kind of gotten crazy, right? And so
talk about the 545 a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when I first, when I was at RD, there was a flood of parts kits that came in from Arsenal, Bulgaria. They called us and said that, hey, Arsenal, Bulgaria are no longer making 545 guns. And this was literally maybe a year after they called us and said they're no longer making 556 guns. So what that meant to them and to us was that they were going to bring over all their leftover 74 parts kits and guns and sell them on kvar.com. And so what that ultimately equaled was 6 containers full of AK-74 parts. And at the time, we were buying parts kits for AK-74 parts kits, fixed stock. A lot of them were wood. Sometimes you can find, polymer stuff in there for about $170 a piece. And, it just kind of flooded the market. We were just, like Brian was saying, that's when he took that AK build class. And I think both Karen and Casey built 74 kits in that class because they were just so cheap at that point. And then something happened where there was like an explosion of 545 popularity. And now everyone wants a 545 kit and there are none. And so there's,
everything. Anytime something's not available, it becomes up and down. And then 545 guns also ride the wave of the ammo. When 545 is dirt cheap and easy to get, everybody wants a 74. Once it gets to the point where it's expensive and hard to get, like now, there's collectors wanting those kits, but as far as like new 74s, nobody really wants one.
Okay. I found the opposite, but a lot of
I always talk from a massive,
sure.
A manufacturing standpoint, as opposed to like what we were talking about now is like the hardcore AK guys.
Right. I always tell people if it's your first AK, buy a 7.62 kit. If it's buy a 7.62 gun. If it's your second AK, buy a 7.62 gun. And then maybe buy a 545 gun. And I don't recommend 556 AKs because that's like that's a controversial topic, but I think
that's going to be one of our questions. I think somebody's asked about that, so we'll address that when we come to it.
I mean, it's better than a 7.62 by 39 AR, that's for sure, right? But we were out there. We built one of the first 300 blackout crank-offs way back when we did that Soundsco thing. And so, I mean, I guess there's a place for it, but there is just,
That's my 7.62 AR right there.
Yeah. One warning.
I will both worlds right there.
Give all the listeners, Marty, I will give everybody one warning about buying new parts kits.
Okay.
Romania has off and on sent into the U.S. parts kits that are brand new parts. If those are not drilled, do not buy them because you can't drill through them because the steel is already hardened. They were sending them in with undrilled, no barrel pins drilled through them, several things like that. So if you're buying a new parts kit, make sure it's already drilled because if it's not already drilled, they already hardened the parts.
Oh, you can drill through them. It's going to cost you.
Yeah, well, you're not going to do it with that Harbor Freight drill press, I assure you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking at, $200
$200 kind of stay away from those new parts kits.
Yeah, the Romanian, there's a few problems with them. Another one is that the front rivet relief in the front trunnion is clocked off by 30 degrees, and they don't blow up, but when you go to push the barrel pin, there's literally a big ass air gap there, and they don't seem to be concerned with fixing it. The Wassers that are coming in are pretty nice, and I don't know if they're the same parts because without going into too much detail, what Andrew said.
Very good. Anything else to add on parts kits? I think a lot of our questions may bring up some other stuff. We got a lot of questions here. So before we get into the questions, so tools, the parts kits. What else does a builder need to consider or take into consideration?
What receiver they're going to go with?
There you go. So if you're not, doing the flats or the 80%ers, complete receivers. So you kind of got three options there, right? That's your three options. What do they need to look for in an American receiver? Anyone?
Okay, I'll jump in here.
No one wants to step on toes. We're all like, I'm not the one who's going to say shit.
Well, you don't have to name names. Just what am I looking for? So I got to have the receiver because the one in my parts kit, either it's not there or it's been, cut. It's been cut in half.
Just beware there are 1 mil and 1.5 mil receivers. Most of them you're going to see are 1 mil, and most of your parts kits are going to need a 1 mil receiver. So just make sure you know what you're buying. That's the biggest thing.
And how would they know that?
What goes in your kit?
How would they know that? And if they need a 1 mil, how would they?
They need to do an AKM receiver from. There's like 3 options that I'm aware of that are reasonable. Actually, there's some very nice receivers made by like Recreator and some other folks like that. Tort. They're high end, and I haven't built on them, but I hear very nice things about them. So leaving those guys alone. The two kind of Morrissey makes almost all the receivers in the country for most or all of the major manufacturers, and we build off them as well. They do need some squaring up in the front and the rear, and that is something to keep in mind. Childers is very nice. They work off a Polish blank. They one of the big things to consider with Morrissey's is that which is also the same. I don't know if Nodak's Bud is still around, but same difference. They heat treat after welding in the rails and welding in the center support, and so giving them a real good rinse. The brine that they heat treat in, it's hard to get it out of those areas. That's one thing to consider. Childers does not do that. They heat treat and then weld the rails in and do the center support, so that saves you a little bit of labor there. They also square up the receiver in the front and the rear and trim the rails. So just spending the money and getting a Childers or a Recreator or one of these other ones makes a lot of sense. There's another option. There's the Polish-made WBP receivers that are FFL items. From what I've seen, they're quite nice, but I don't have a lot of experience on them. I'm curious what Billy's thoughts are, though.
I've actually never built on those as well, and so for the most part, I've made my own. I do all my own heat treating in-house as well. But then, there's great receivers out there. I even would recommend, even maybe trying a milled receiver, right? If you're not really comfortable riveting, right? So try a Sharps Bros or a Tordort, I guess. I've never tried a Tordort one for sure. I've built a lot of Sharps, but I mean, his quality's there. He's doing some amazing stuff with milled receivers, adding, the AK-100 style folders to them and doing all kinds of crazy stuff on a milled receiver. That was pretty cool. And so, I built out Childers. They're great. I built off a lot of Childers actually. There used to be guys that, one guy used to go by 74U LLC. I don't think he's around anymore, but he would make perfect receivers as well. But Yeah, there's a lot of good receiver makers out there right now, and as far as making your own, it's probably not worth the investment because they're so cheap, you know. And so
Yep.
it's good practice too to buy a couple and try it out yourself if you're trying to build it yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, they're already heat treated, and if you're doing the flats, you got to get into the heat treatment as well.
right.
Yep.
Just real quick for our more advanced builders, talk about the heat treat process that you guys would recommend.
Again, I recommend that you would potentially buy one that's already heat treated, because I have a 2 oven setup at my house that I use mostly for knives nowadays, right? Because no one wants to pay extra for you to heat treat your own stuff, and so, but basically I would fold the receivers, right? AK Builder does sell a fantastic folding jig on there, and then I would spot weld the rails in, and then you have to stress relieve it every time you get something hot really quickly, and if you decide not to stress relieve, it has a potential to warp, right? And so then once you stress relieve, it takes a really long time. That's why people don't do it. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, because once you heat treat, then you have to quench in some sort of way. There's quenching fluid, or some people use rapid air, or heat sinks and all that, and then you have to temper to basically, once you heat treat it, it basically shocks it. I think Brian will probably explain it better, and all the kinetic
You're doing great.
come out, right? And so typically, if once it gets to that point, and if you just leave it at that, it'll be extremely hard to drill through, and you can actually have parts crack and break off and become extremely brittle. So you need to temper it to bring it back down to that rock weld that you're shooting for. And so that itself, would take maybe 2 or 3 cycles of 2 hours a piece. And so again, it's maybe just the pure amount of energy you're using is probably cost more than the receiver itself, So if you want to do it, I guess you can, but it's really not.
But again, we're
worth
talking to our advanced builders here at this point.
Even then, Marty, I wouldn't. This is like, I've heat treated knives and stuff. I've never heat treated an AK flat because it's so difficult to do right.
Mm-hmm.
People
Right.
dedicate. This is like heat treating is a very deep art and science, and getting it right, learning how to do it on sheet metal is crazy. And so, if I may, let me propose for the advanced folks the non-heat treat method, which is what I used to do. And it's even easier today because the ATF approved blanks that have the rails already welded in. So today you can go, I just checked, Arms of America has a bunch in stock, and it looks like they're trying to offload them for obvious reasons. And you get a 80% one made in Poland that has the welding. The welding of the rails is actually a pretty deep thing as well. That's already done. Then you hop over to AK Builder and get their drilling jig, and all you got to do is drill the 2 holes and then the rivet holes in the bottom for the trigger guard, and you're done. And that is a tractable thing on a drill press, and the drilling jig is not much money and will work for a lot of guns. It's heat treated and very hard, and you're just drilling 4mm rivet holes, 5mm and 7mm axis pins, a 10mm drill for the keyhole that the safety goes in, and then I think a 4 or a 5 for the front of the keyhole. You open that up with a Dremel and you're done. And so that's a very doable thing for the garage builder. And we've stayed away from Curie points, and like, kind of to temper well, you have to know what alloy you're working with. And also you get into some very weird effects with skinny metal that Billy has much more experience with than I do. But it's just, heat treat is
It sucks.
it sucks, and it's not easy. And there's a reason, because Billy's a master knife maker. He does it himself, but we do a ton of heat treat here, and I farm it all out to professionals who, I talk to physicists over there, metallurgists who just go right over my head, and I have a graduate degree in physics. So like, this is just shit that unless you're dedicating your life to it, Not great. That said, by all means, I'd be curious if Billy had a simpler method than this, but I've got a real quick homebrew heat treat thing, especially if you have children. You build a charcoal fire and you can get like a actual, not briquettes, but hardwood charcoal and a map torch. And you just get a good pile of coals going, and you've already bought and shaped using a O1 tool steel. I like that one, not because it's a great knife material anymore. It's fairly old. It just heat treats really easily. And you cut your rough blank and shove it in that fire, get it preheated. And what all the charcoal is doing is making a reduction atmosphere, meaning that there's no oxygen present. And when you get up near the Curie point, which is the magic point where metal loses its magnetic, you can hold a magnet against metal that's at the Curie point, and it's non-magnetic, and that's your go signal to quench. So you bury it in the charcoal, and then when you get close, hit it with the map torch inside the charcoal to get so that you've still got this reduction atmosphere going. And then you've got it on a wire, so you can pull it out of there, and you also have a magnet on a wire. And pull it out, dunk it in motor oil, and then on the package there is a temper schedule, and you just stick it in your home oven. If I remember right, it's like 450 for like 3 hours, and then you turn your oven off and just let it slowly cool. And we only had about 10 thousandths of shitty iron on the outside of really nice Rockwell 60 steel. The times we've done that at home with teaching my daughters how it all works. Does that is there a simpler way to do that, Billy?
Well, I use basically temperature controlled ovens made by a company called Even Heat. And so they basically have a digital scale that you can just say, hey, make it this hot. It'll make it exactly at that number. It'll hold it.
I get that. I mean, for if people want to embrace their inner redneck and get the satisfaction of heat treating like they would, back in the day, they used to take a map torch, just rose up the axis pinholes, dunk it, and call it good. What I'm proposing is, hey, go make a knife the redneck way, have a good time. Is there a simpler, cheaper way to do it than what I just described?
That's pretty much it, man. A lot of people use the same thing. They'll basically take an old barbecue, fill it with charcoal, and then put a leaf blower to it, and get it really hot. And
they do that on Forest and Fire, Seriously, I mean, that's a good place to go and watch somebody heat treating something, and the headaches and heartaches that can come along with it. And
there's definitely science behind it. There's so many different steels, and some of them require a cryogenic treatment. Some of them require, I've worked with a steel called SM100, which is a titanium based. And it's like you stick it in at a certain time, let it hold for 5 minutes, and you pull it out and you press it between two aluminum blocks. And then the entire blade turns like gold and rainbow from all the oxygen left inside. A lot of times people will put inside like a wrap. So sometimes people use like a stainless steel foil, and that keeps it from getting oxidized. So you won't have all that pitting that, Brian was talking about, on the outside layer, because it keeps it that basically oxygen out of that oven. And so, so there's like these 100,000 different types of steels that people use. And some of them, again, require them soaking in between quench and temper into liquid nitrogen for, 20, 30 minutes. Some of them, it's a crazy science, and there's metallurgists for a reason. And so that's why I always tell people, don't try to heat treat on your own AK receiver. I can say that a non-heat treated AK receiver will work for a little while, but then eventually it'll start sucking. So don't buy something expensive and just half-ass it when you could just spend another $70 and get a completely heat treated receiver. So don't be an idiot.
While we're on this topic, I'm going to go to questions because there's a question about it. Corey Brown says, I finally upgraded to an electric. I need to put my glasses on. Basically, a kiln to heat treat my receivers. Best decision ever. I was using bricks stacked up in a weed burner to get it up to temperature. Didn't even have a temp gun. I just used a magnet. My question is, what did you use to heat treat when you first started out?
When I first started out, I just bought pre-heat treat receivers. Like I said,
Yeah.
and I didn't really start experimenting with heat treating until I became a knife maker, and so because you can get like really hard spots and on one spot of the receiver, or you're gonna have to spend a really expensive, you gotta buy a really expensive drill bit to cut through there, so it's not as easy as it just sounds like. Hey, I'm just gonna pull it out and quench it in cooking oil. It doesn't work that way, and so it will take a lot of experimentation. Every oven is different, even though the a digital oven like I have will say that it's 1550 degrees Fahrenheit. It could be 1575. It could be 1400. Maybe that the scale wasn't reading as correctly. And you can't just put a magnet on everything because some stuff is stainless, right? And so it's you have to experiment with it, and see what works with your oven, and you have to get a hardness tester, right? Wilton makes a really great one, and get that right hardness. And so if you're really serious about it, again, it's like a lot of equipment for something you can just buy for like $75 a fully heat treated receiver.
Right. And same thing goes with just buying a complete AK.
Yeah, I mean, like a hardness tester, a good one's like, a couple $1,000s, right? So
I'll say this, Marty, about heat treating. If the listeners want to think of the 5 largest manufacturers of firearms in the United States, okay, none of them have their own heat treating facilities. They literally send all their stuff out to be heat treated. That's how specialized it is. Those people, that's all they do is heat treat parts, and not just for the gun industry, for lots of other people. But all the largest manufacturers here do not do their own heat treat. That is farmed out to people who specialize in it. So again, I will agree with both of the other guys on this show.
Sure.
Don't be an idiot
and
buy a pre-treated receiver.
If you're
I get that
receivers to make money, you're gonna lose money. So don't do that. What are you doing, right? So
yeah. And then you got to get into getting your certifications and your licensing and all that if you're going to do it to make money.
Yeah.
And that's kind of not what we're talking about. We're talking about home builders. You're doing it for yourself, for your own pleasure, kind of thing. So I think we've covered the heat treat. So if you want to get into it, there's going to be a lot that goes into it. Better to go ahead and buy one that's already done. So questions: Bailey Mueller 80. K&S piston versus adjustable gas block, or how else do you make your AK work with a suppressor to manage the increased gas pressure working the piston?
So I like the K&S adjustable gas piston or adjustable gas block, and the reason why I dislike adjustable gas blocks, right? It was, I was actually in the process of designing one when I realized, I don't like these, right? Because when you go out into the field, it's horrible to bring tools and try to adjust a little screw or a little switch block inside of a hot rail, or it's really hard to do on the fly when you can just take the K&S gas piston and just do like 5 clicks, and you can just say, and that's how many clicks that'll make my gun run perfectly, and then put it back in and it'll go. So that's the reason why, because no one really wants to bring extra tools to the range or a training class. So I don't think adjustable gas block's really practical unless you keep it, that gas port suppressed the whole time. But that's just my 2 cents. I also wanted to add that, the K&S gas piston is a little bit heavier. So, every one of my guns, I always have a perfectly sized gas port to run. And so what I noticed is that sometimes the K&S piston will be too heavy for it to cycle where I have it normally set. It needs to be slightly over gas in the first place for the K&S piston to run reliably in your gun. That being said, you have infinite amount of adjustment in those things. So, but everyone, they can like what they like. That's just my 2 cents.
Brian, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Obviously we make our own adjustable gas block. So I don't make anything that.
Sorry.
Oh no, and you're good. No, I ain't. No, I what Billy said is great and true, and there's some compromises. Fundamentally, we don't want the gun to hammer itself apart, and so if you're running a can, with our production guns in the past, we've done the very best that we can to be good at both. But you can that only takes you so far, and the back pressure, depending on what can you're using, the back pressure from, and Mike Pappas is going to kill me for calling it back pressure along with Kurt Hallstrom, but that's the word, even though it's not technically exactly what's going on. It effectively lengthens the barrel. That's a way to think about it. And if you have an L length can on, that's much more time where there's gas pushing back on the piston. So if you do want the gun to run awesome in both conditions, suppressed and unsuppressed, or you have wild temperature ranges like Alaska. I was there for a wedding and it was 90 degrees, and I've also been there in October when it was negative 50. And a nicely gassed system at 70 Fahrenheit is not going to cycle at negative 50. It ain't going to happen. That's a rare corner case, but it is a thing. So you need some adjustability, and you got to pay the piper somewhere. With the KNS, I personally, just like Billy has a personal bias towards the KNS, I have a personal bias against it, but it's exactly what Billy said. It's personal opinion. That doesn't mean I'm right. With the KNS, there's a lot of small parts in a corrosive gas environment. That said, they have a bit of a track record now, and I think very early on, some of them were breaking. I haven't heard about breakage lately. And at this point, they've been out 3 or 4 years. And so I think we can say that's a tested product at this point. What Billy said is also quite accurate. You need to have your gun overgassed if you're going to put a KNS in. And if it's a rack gun from one of the big manufacturers, it likely is overgassed enough. And that's what KNS sized that whole thing for. If it's a fancy pants gun, made by somebody in the U.S., it very likely will be a little bit undergassed. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is the weight. The other is the shape of it's kind of like a Hemi. If you look at the piston face, it has a different shape. And at least the last one I saw had a pretty deep bore in the piston itself. And that acts like a balloon. More gas can build up in there and compress without building pressure. It's sort of like an escape valve for extra gas. So that's the deal. And KNS, adjustable gas block or nothing, you do you. And we're in America and we like guns, so we're all on the same team.
Right on. Send us to Fists. Any tips or tricks to straightening the front sight on a Wasser? Andrew's laughing.
It very well may be straight, and the problem is that the gun shoots a little crooked, which is not. That doesn't mean it's a bad gun. You can actually punch the 2 pins out, set the windage to the center, take it to the range with a crescent wrench, and dope it in. If it drives you that crazy, then you re-drill those holes or add a new hole. It's an intermediate to advanced technique, so it's not the kind of thing, if you've never worked on an AK, that is maybe a good idea, but taking it to a gunsmith for the finish work, working on a Wasser as opposed to, one of Jim's or Billy's or my guns, that's kind of the right place to be working on one. Wassers will take a lot of punishment and keep running.
Billy?
I would just leave it.
What Billy
Kentucky
said.
windage it.
No, just because it appears crooked to your eyes, as long as it'll sight up, and as long as you hit your target when you line your sights up, it's just a cosmetic thing at that point. But now if it's not shooting accurately, obviously you need to straighten it out.
Okay. Let's see.
Get a new Wasser and have any of those issues, it's under warranty. Just send it back and they'll straighten it for you.
Bree Kincart. What is the best way to ensure getting relatively good matching on the holy trinity of parts?
Buy a numbers matching kit. I mean,
That would be the
I
best
don't know
way.
what else to tell you. There's no
Way
other
to
way
do
to get parts matching stuff without buying a numbers matching kit.
Make
Yeah, and
sure
one
your
of the-
kit's matching.
We build on all new parts, and the parts aren't matched when they're new. You got to match them, and that's a big part of, one of the big things we do is this proprietary automated lapping thing that does the same thing that the thousands of cycles that are on a used kit already is done, or some babushka overseas. They tune them in there. But yeah, what Billy's to first order matching serial numbers ensures some pretty good matching.
Armis Bravus, opinions on the FB Rodham Chrome Lime Cold Forged Sporter barrels coming into this country, especially as it pertains to concentricity for suppressor host. Is there a way to correct that when cutting it down and threading it?
I've actually never used those barrels before, so I can't really comment on if they're any good or not, or accurate or not.
I will say that that a lot of those barrels that are not threaded, we were discussing heat treat, and it's very, very important on this specific topic, because what happens with a lot of these barrels that come in from the foreign countries, the heat treat's not necessarily even. So one side of your barrel will cut very easily, and the other side of your barrel you can barely get the tool through, which typically makes it's not going to be concentric regardless of what you do, because your tooling is just not strong enough. And I don't want to call out any specific brand. I've never tried to thread one of those barrels. But I am saying that over the years, over purchasing lots of barrels, working with manufacturers, working at home, I've noticed that threading the barrel of an AK to be concentric to your bore is very hard because of the inconsistencies and the hardness of the metals.
Yeah, also another thing with hammer forging is that the linearity of the bore is generally pretty poor. I have threaded the FB Radom one in the past. I've done one or two of them, and it's rare that people cut barrels properly for suppressors. What you need to do is probe the last 2 inches of the barrel and use what's called a spider. And it's an advanced thing, but let's dumb it down a little bit. You stick a 302 pin in the muzzle end, and then you have to dial in your lathe such that pin isn't running out at all, meaning there's no wiggle in it in multiple locations. Because if you just dial in like in a 4-jaw chuck, it's going to be center at a point. It's going to be centered at a point, but not centered to the line. If you only center in one place, then you've got a point. You need 2 points to define a line, which is the axis of the bore. And it's the last 2 inches that really make the most difference with where the bullet's going to go. So when you're cutting threads into a barrel, you first have to have a spider, then you've got to get it dialed in, and then you've got to start cutting your threads. And I just don't know that many people that do it right. And some people get lucky, other people get unlucky. And so it's really an advanced thing to do that well. Bolt gun gunsmiths have that whole thing nailed really hard. And so it's a rare time where I'd say bring your barrel to a long range bench gun kind of guy to have that process done.
Anything else to add to that? Anyone? Okay. Real Dan Holland. Pros and cons of stamped versus milled receivers. I think we've kind of hit on that a little bit as far as the home builds go. Anything else to add on that topic?
If it comes to a U.S. made milled compared to a foreign parts kit, as far as value wise, the foreign parts kit is going to be worth more in a stamped receiver. If you're looking for something that holds value. As far as a milled receiver will be more accurate, right? Out of the box typically, but it's going to be typically more heavier. So I prefer stamped myself, just because you're able to fix things, right? So there's been a few times where we had a machine gun and someone ran some weird, funky ammo in there, and we had a detonation that kind of ruptured the side of the casing and kind of blew up a trunnion. And so if it was a milled receiver, you'd have to weld it and hope, pray to God that you didn't stress out the barrel too much by putting all that heat in there. But if it's a stamp gun, you can just put a new trunnion in there, maybe a new barrel, and you'd be good to go. So, I came from a training background because of what I learned at Rifle Dynamics. We took a ton of training classes, and so that mindset of having a fighting gun has always been a top priority of mine. And so that's why I don't really think that the benefit of the accuracy from a milled receiver would benefit, make it more valuable or more of a gun to acquire than a stamped receiver.
More desirable.
So that's my personal opinion.
Okay. There was a question on here for you guys. I'll find who did it, but it basically, what is the worst home build kit that you guys have received that you had to correct?
Oh God, there's been, when I was at Rifle Dynamics, I started keeping a photo log of these guns, and I probably had like hundreds of them, right? Where you see like
wall of shame kind of deal.
You see people do screw builds, and then they weld the screws. You'll see, the sheer amount of cross-threaded barrels is insane. You just see. I remember one time someone was like, "I want to make this gun like the gun that we built for Travis Haley," and so it had a Venom gas block on there, right? It's 14.5 pin and welded, and so he had someone else built it, and the gun was so messed up. The only thing that was salvageable was the gas block. Everything else was just completely welded. I've seen barrel pins that were actually just JB weld.
Holy shit.
When I drilled it, it just came out like a powder. It was, I've just seen the most craziest stuff. Recently, I basically did a full rebuild on 2 SBRs. One was same guy owned both, and the guy basically ruined the whole. One was AK-74U, and the other one was a M92. And so they were both SBRs, and they were one of the worst builds I've ever seen, right? And so on the M92, the receiver had rusted, and the guy just painted over it. And so it continued to rust. So when I had to basically sand the receiver, the black paint was turning red from all the rust. And it was every single hole on the trunnions were messed up. Every single hole on the receiver was messed up. And obviously the guy's like, oh, I just, it's SBR, and it's a very valuable kit. And so it was, that was a really expensive build. I always tell people, find the right people, because if you have to take it to someone like me, it'll cost more for me to get it to the starting point of starting fresh than if you were to, have a screwed up build like that and see me again. So, I've just seen a lot of crazy stuff.
What about you, Brian?
The worst one I've ever seen came into the shop, a buddy of mine locally. It's actually the gentleman that machines some of the Ultimax. They're made like 300 yards from where I'm sitting right now, which is really funny. But he brought it in. He had got it at a gun show, and it was too ugly to not pass up. And it was pop riveted. It was a flat. I think it was on a Yugo kit, and they had used an AKM receiver, an AKM flat, and the Yugo has a bulged front trunnion like the new Century gun, and an AKM receiver does not have a bulge in the front. And they were like, no problem, we have a hammer. And so they just kind of randomly beat it into shape. There are pop rivets on it. There are screws on it. There are rivets on it. None of them done well.
That is
And
a Frankenstein
the
build.
rails are so fucked up that the dust cover has to be on for the gun to cycle, or the bolt carrier will just fly backwards.
Oh my God.
The dust cover is what holds the bolt carrier into the gun as it's cycling. You can see this masterpiece because I thought the world needed to see it. He traded it with Brandon Herrera for one of his guns, and it's up on a Brandon Herrera video from the last couple of weeks, I think. So that's the worst one I've ever seen. I've made a couple atrocities, but nobody will ever see them. It's first couple guns. FPS Murdoch asks, is a crank parts kit more difficult to do than a standard? And the answer is yes, because because early on I wanted a crank. I found a long barrel crank Arsenal kit Virgin in 2015, I think, and I got it, and I made an 80. And it was the first time that I had done a side folder, and I had to cut in the side folder myself on the 80%er. And that is something I would recommend to precisely zero people on your first few guns. Just don't even mess with the side folder. It's not easy, even when you really know what you're doing. I usually spend an hour or two when we do side folder runs, it's been a long time now. I spent a good hour or two tuning in all those little catches so that they feel right. And it just takes forever. And I actually the reason I developed some of those tools is I literally got nerve damage. I couldn't feel most of my thumb from the pressure from having done it so many times of actuating that button. I literally got a numb spot in my thumb. And so, yeah, don't do side folders out of the gate.
Good point. And the absolute worst build came from AKM Archer. He asked that. This is specifically for Billy. P-Man 301. Billy, do you like making knives or AKs better? What is a project you currently have that you are very passionate about?
Oh boy. I think I actually, I love both equally. You know what I mean? I feel like if I only built guns, that I would get burnt out, and, I'll just, that's another reason why I don't do production guns. Cause if it's not interesting to me, I just get bored and I just hate my life at that point. So if I didn't jump back and forth, I think, I would really have a big problem. Cause, I need some kind of balance, and I just need to sometimes step away from certain things. Same thing with knives. If I just did knives for, 6 months, it would just drive me crazy. And so I really like both equally. So some projects I'm working on, I talked to Brian about it, but when I was at Radiant, I was just learning a lot about manufacturing. So I taught myself how to CNC, with help from a bunch of friends. I didn't go to school for it. And so I got my own CNC, about a little Haas super mini mill. And so I've been making my own knife parts on that. And it's been a lot of fun learning about the different tools and little things I could do with it. And so that's been a really fun project. Eventually AK parts, maybe, if I feel like it. I'll just kind of go on a whim and just kind of do what I like and what I enjoy.
Very good.
Wisdom.
Guns, oil, and dirt. We answered this during the show. Who makes the best kit in your opinion? What would you and what would someone expect to pay? We didn't really talk cost, but again, for all the tools and everything that you're going to need to do it yourself, I mean, you're a couple of grand easy to get the good quality type parts or tools. But thank you for the question. Let's see. PPRN, best and most economical way to do a home build. We kind of covered that through our talks there. Here's another one for Billy. This is from Pete. And it says, for Billy, what did you do in Vegas before all the gun stuff?
Okay. So, I came from a really interesting background, right? I came from the entertainment industry, and I don't want to say that like I'm some kind of a stripper or an escort or something, right? But
Vegas seat.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
And that's what it was. I'm just kidding.
Busted.
I've had a pretty eclectic life. I've done a lot of stuff as far as I did a lot of nonprofit stuff. But before I started RD, I actually worked at a magic show as well, like a straight up magician.
Like David Copperfield or the.
And this guy, I don't want to say his name because we just talked so much bad stuff about him because he was like such a diva. But he was at the Planet Hollywood, so it was one of the major casinos over there.
Uh-huh.
But I got that gig because I was a professional breakdancer for a number of years in my early teens to early 20s. So my team, they're called Knucklehead Zoo. They're still around today. They teach a bunch of kids now, and so we've won we represent the U.S. like maybe 5 or 6 times
doing magic
in the
tricks,
world championships. And so I was a professional breakdancer for a while. I'm too old for it now. And I also worked at a magic show doing breakdancing and making the magician appear out of nowhere.
Breakdancing. Did you do was that the way?
I have to put myself on
Jazz
mute.
dance.
My head is about to explode right now.
Yeah.
This is
So
amazing.
my team won like MTV's America's Best Dance Crew. They made a documentary about them that was on Netflix for a while.
Dude, I was heavy into the breakdancing in the era. That's my era. That's where I'm.
Oh yeah, me
That's
too.
where I
Me
grew
too.
up. The parachute pants, the high tops, the bandanas, I don't know what kind of shirts they called those, but from Breaking.
But with the collars that snapped open and were like double colors.
Oh yeah, you remember the movie Breaking and then Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo?
Oh yeah.
That's Billy's 2 favorite movies, Red Dawn and Breaking 2, right?
Were you in that
Actually,
movie, Billy?
We were a 90s era breakdancer, so we were the punk kids that made fun of those movies. Just like how we make fun of people as boomers for carrying revolvers.
Dude, I remember in those movies, people would break out in the aisles. People would get out in the front of the theater and start breakdancing during the movie.
Yeah, and so we traveled all over the world breakdancing, man, at an early age, and so it was an interesting life, man. And so because of that, it's kind of torn up my body where I feel like a 70-year-old man now. And
maybe that's what was wrong with my hip, Andrew. Maybe that's why I had to get a hip replacement.
All that breakdancing.
Is all that centipedes and stuff. That was from your buddy Pete Pye at Defiant, Billy.
Pete Pye. Thing about Pete, I think he makes the best ammo, period. As far as
Period.
I did a lot of accuracy testing when I was at Radian, and his stuff seemed to be the most accurate ammo I ever shot in my life. So, and we shot a lot of different ammos. So.
Yeah, it's Defiant Munition, listeners. Go check them out. Use the code LEADHEAD, and he's going to give you 10% off at Defiant Munitions.
And he makes a very nice self-defense 7.62 round that's solid copper, nasty, flower petals of death, amazing. Very second everything Billy said, but also
you,
he
lever
actually
action
gives
guys,
love to the AK people.
Yeah,
so
he's making the 4570 round now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, next question. I just lost it. You answered FPS there. J. Edgar Paradox, and specifically asking you, Brian, but everybody can chime in. Some kits come already head-spaced. I'm currently looking at a kit that doesn't come with a barrel. Can you give us the audio version of properly head spacing? My first build was not worthy sending in to get hugged, so I quickly went with the badass ODS 1775. I did cut up my...
Yeah, that was awesome. We did and we're going to do it again for Hug Your AK Day. We're going to do we're going to keep doing it, but a Pimp Your AK deal where the winner, got their AK sent in for love, and J. Edgar Paradox opted for, I think we gave him like a $2,000 discount on a new gun.
Nice.
And I'm glad that worked well for him. Head spacing. There's a lot of schools of thought. I think having a press with a pressure gauge on it is a really good idea. We use a very proprietary method, but I know that other folks will headspace on either a go or a no-go, depending on their preferences. I would advocate putting the bolt in the trunnion and with a go gauge in it and with the extractor taken out. So strip the bolt, push the and can you even do this without special tooling? I'm not sure that anybody makes you can make your own gear to do this. What a lot of people do is they'll press the barrel in a few thou and then check it, and press the barrel in a few thou and check it, and then they'll have to push it out and push it in, and you can spend most of a day hating yourself. There is a way to build, and you can actually see it. I think you can see it in a JMac Customs video with, I'm blanking on his name in Tennessee. He used to be the foreman for what became PSA. DDI.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Billy? I'm blanking on the gentleman's name. He's a great builder.
Dave. Oh my gosh.
He's in Tennessee.
Well, at any rate, you can see it in that video, and I think he does something similar to that. We do it a different way. But basically, if you can figure out how to press the barrel in with a go gauge and the bolt already engaged, that's a pretty good deal. And then if you have a pressure monitor, you can monitor the pressure spike when it bottoms out. But a lot of folks just go off feel and they ping pong the barrel back and forth. Another guy, Ryan Reisner, was asking proper pressure for measuring headspace. You are a thinking individual, sir, and I salute you. If you Google AK Headspace VSO Media, you will find a paper that I wrote with John Holton, Robert Forbus, and Curtis on the proper way to do it, referencing the East German Armorer's Manual. The short answer is 10 to 20 kilograms is the acceptance window for when you're doing a headspace measurement. So you need to have more than 10 and less than 20 to have headspace that's at that number, whatever that number is. So on a go gauge, that's 1.252 inches. But you can get progressive sets that are smaller or bigger. But a go gauge is a decent place to start there, though I would be curious to hear what Billy has to say.
Yeah, just use a go gauge and no go gauge. If you're just starting out, it'll get you pretty close. There's obviously a sweet spot that, a lot of these builders would know where you can max out accuracy. And so having progressive gauges would be nice for that. But for a standard builder that's not going to spend that kind of money, you probably, if we're going to go with something limited as far as tool, you might just need to just kind of, do what Brian said, basically squeeze in a few thou and then press it out and trying to figure out the way where the go gauge goes and the no go doesn't go. So if you wanted to get more advanced, then yeah, you can really dive deep into that. But for a beginner builder, I would just say, just do the best you can with the simplest amount of tools you can afford. So
and one thing to add is that the no-go gauge, there's some disinformation on the interwebs about guns grenading when they close on a no-go. That's absolutely not true. It's completely false. If that were true, there wouldn't be such a thing as a field gauge. And so if on your first gun it closes on a no-go, that does not mean the gun's dangerous. And it's a 5,000ths window between 1.252 and 257. And I think the field gauge is 5 thou above that. And so if you it's common for the headspace to open up by a couple thou when you shoot it and burn it in. And so if it's a little tight when you put it together, take it to the range, make sure that it goes all the way into battery every single time. You don't want it to be halfway into battery when you hit the trigger. But it's common that headspace will open up. So if the gun's a little tight, don't stress it too hard, but too tight can be as dangerous as too loose, depending.
Okay. Are you on the social media right now, Billy?
No.
On Instagram? All right, so you're not looking at any of these questions here. I was going to have you just go through and pick one. Let's do a couple more, and then let's give away our stuff and wrap up the show here.
Sure.
Could I dish one to Billy here? Because
Yeah,
I'm curious what he thinks.
Yeah, you're on one. Do it.
Let's see. The Smith 9x39 asks, AK builder style rivet jig or bolt cutter rivet jaw, pros and cons to both.
What I like about the AK builder rivet jig is that you'll have like a flat rivet, right? Because with a bolt cutter style, basically you're pressing the force in like this motion, right? And so you'll end up having a rivet that kind of looks like that on the top. And so I think the AK builder rivet jig just makes it easier. Well, maybe not as easier as a bolt cutter, but easier to make good looking rivets. You can also have, weird things happen on the outside of the rivet by having the bolt cutter thingy, So I think the bolt cutter thing was like the first like widespread kind of thing. But I think, if you want it to look nice, might as well just buy the AK builder one.
Same thoughts,
100%.
Brian? Okay.
Yeah. What he said.
So basically, with this new 80%, they're saying what do we anticipate the future of the 80% and the flats, being? Here we go. We have to talk about everybody's thoughts on where the future leads to the 80%. And I think, we don't know what the ruling is, what it actually says and what it means yet. So until we get a clarification on that, we can't really predict that. But if it's going the way that it looks like some of these people think it's going to, it looks like they're going to not sell them anymore. AK Builder's website, said it plain as day right there. They're not going to be selling them anymore to the public. Anyway, so that's kind of what we're seeing there. And then tongue for twisting, this would be a good one to end it on. Basically, he's saying, here we go, to build or to simply buy whole and not attempt. And I think that's what the whole show is about. Make your own decision on that. We kind of gave you a good idea of what's involved, what you're looking at. So you got to look at your skill level, your desire, and why you're doing it, and what it means to you. So that's only a question you can answer for yourself. I think these guys would say send it to them. Buy your parts kit, send it to them, let them do it right. And, get something that you're definitely going to love, be proud of, and going to hold its value. But I think you guys probably get a lot of these home builds that you have to, re-Frankenstein and fix and make anyway from some of these people that just jack it up. But the class is the first start.
Yeah, exactly. I would heavily advocate the class. I think it's a fantastic use of money, even if you have no technical ability whatsoever, because if nothing else, it'll make you a better operator and a better armorer. And that's a giant deal. And so I would say don't build one. Build one with one of the people that teach how to build. And that's huge.
I would agree with Brian. I would say definitely build one either in a class or build one with someone who has built multiple of them, someone that can pass their knowledge on to you. If you don't have access to a class or can't afford the class or whatever, try to find somebody in the community that has built an AK before and have them help you. I mean, that's definitely a good way to do it. As far as to build or to buy, simply, I mean, it's completely up to the individual. If you just want an AK to shoot, obviously just go buy an AK and shoot it. There's tons of great AKs out there. If you want the experience and the enjoyment of building yourself, then grab a kit. It's super fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, when I was a kid building AKs, you could buy a brand new Norinco AK for $180. And I was spending hundreds of dollars building parts kits, not because it was cheaper, because I thought it was fun. So that's really the bottom line. If you want to do it because you need a rifle that's going to shoot great, go buy one. If you're doing it because you want to learn and want to enjoy the experience, by all means, jump in and do it, but try and do your first couple with someone who's done it before.
Yeah, I agree. Billy, anything to add to that?
I would just agree as well. Both guys said great points. Take a class. I also want to mention this. It's really based off the individual if you want to build or buy, because I went through a lot of employees and some people just don't have it. They just don't have the ability to work with their hands. So if you're, want to give it a shot and that's your personality and you want to see if this is something you can do, then go for it. But it's okay to buy. That's why we're around, right? So, so the choice is up to you. You know yourself best. So, again, it's 100% up to you.
There you go. A lot of great questions here. Didn't get to everybody's. If we didn't get to your question and you still want an answer to it, I think we pretty much covered everything, though. Feel free, shoot me an email, and I'll get with these guys. Or you just contact them directly yourselves, like I said, through the social medias, direct message stuff. You can do that. If they want to email you or something like that, Billy, do you have an email address that they could get in touch with you? Website?
Yeah, they can go ahead and email info at ironbornarmory.com. I almost said Rifle Dynamics. Oh my God.
Habits.
So info at ironbornarmory.com. So I also wanted to add something. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, and the knife community would probably crucify me if I didn't mention it. But I have some knife etiquette things I wanted to just tell you guys real quick.
Okay.
So I think this will spread awareness to the gun community, because a lot of the gun community don't know how to treat custom knives. So what I have here is just a simple production $200 knife, right? So a lot of times people beat these like crazy, right? And so that's fine. And so, but with a custom knife, I have a custom knife right here, one of mine. Mm-hmm. And so here's one of mine that I made, right? And so, nice. But with a custom knife, you never want to open a knife with like a wrist flick. You don't want to go like this. Uh-huh. If you ever go to a knife show and you pick up a knife, don't ever do that, right? A custom knife.
Bad etiquette.
These knives are typically made of titanium handles with maybe a steel stop pin, and it could basically, what happens is you can just kind of prematurely wear it out. On a production knife, who gives a shit, right? Even if it's a couple $100s. But on a custom knife, some of them might go for $20,000. You don't know, right? So don't ever pick it up and wrist flick it. Even upside down, where you're trying to be like some kind of tactical guy and do this. Uh-huh. Don't, right? On a custom knife.
Do not wrist flick. Okay.
Don't ever wrist flick. So just
etiquette
always
rule
ask
number
the
one.
Guy if he can pick it up, and then if it has a flipper, go ahead and use the flipper tab. And then don't do anything. Just be act like it's not yours. And so that's really what I want to point out. 'Cause that's what I see most gun guys do all the time. It's just like, oh, look at that, and it ends up pissing the custom knife maker off, right? So, because you got to realize, like this knife, the handle is it's a Damascus made out of titanium and zirconium, and oftentimes this stuff will cost sometimes $1,000 a pound.
Oh wow!
Right?
Wow!
And you're wrist flicking something like this, that's gonna be ruin someone's knife prematurely. Yeah. And so just
treat it like it's not your own until it is yours, till you give him the money, then you wrist flick it all you want.
Yeah, you can throw out a wall for all you want. So just that's just a simple etiquette that I just want to add out there.
That's a good tip. I like that. And especially coming
see
off
on here, this production knife, see that lock bar, how it goes all the way over? Mm-hmm. That just shows how much the titanium on this lock bar has worn out. Because typically it should be somewhere like, on a nice knife, it's usually somewhere less, that's like an early 10% as opposed to going all the way down like that.
Worn down like that. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just wanted to add that.
Good tip, especially coming off, Blade Show was just, was it this past weekend, I believe?
Yep.
As we're talking about this. So good tip. All right, let's give some stuff away here. Let's present some prizes. We've got I think my kit's back there somewhere. I did some photos. But here's one right here. Seal 1 CLP gun cleaning kit, and it will come with the bore patches for your AK-47. You'll get the liquid, the paste, and like I said, the pre-soaked, and it comes with the brushes, microfiber. You'll get a nice kit here. Who do we want to award that to? The questions that I asked there, Brian, pick one that you really think they deserve this.
Oh, that gent who was asking how much force to use on a go gauge is near and dear to my heart. Let's see what his name was.
Okay. Is it the Ryan Reisner?
That sounds right.
When building a new
Yes.
AK, how tight
Yes.
should the headspace be? Okay, there you go, Ryan. So you are the winner. Email me, talkinglead@gmail.com. I'll need your shipping address, obviously, so I can forward that on to Dwight over at Seal One. And let me know what you won, what episode and what you won. All right, next we've got a Mission First Tactical Talking Lead dump tray, which I got to get all my shit off of it here. Done by the fine folks at Mission First Tactical. We use these for our armorer's trays as well, gunsmithing trays. So and Brian uses these in his shop as well.
Yeah, for machining, and coolant is amazing. Machining coolant is amazing at dissolving all kinds of plastics and adhesives and stuff. And we've been using it for a couple years now with no degradation of the finish at all. So whatever they're doing with injecting the dye into the plastic as it's coming off is working. So very hardy tray.
I am going to pick the winner of this. I liked the Real Dan Holland. He asked a couple of questions. One was the pros and cons of stamped versus milled. He also asked, would love to hear your thoughts on the new Stenzel Industries AK, which I'm not familiar with Stenzel Industries AK. You guys?
Yeah. We're actually, I've talked with Joe, the man,
okay,
a couple times now. Real nice guy. I don't have an opinion on the gun yet. It really depends on how much testing he puts in, but good dude, prior service, rooting for him.
Here you go. So, Real Dan Holland, email me, talkinglead@gmail.com. Tell me what you won, and of course, we'll need your shipping address for that.
Dan is one of our alumni of the Talking Lead 212 training AK class.
Oh, he was there? Okay.
Yeah, he was the super handsome one.
Ah. I thought that was Andrew. You were at that course, Andrew. You're muted, Andrew. All right, next we're going to give away a box of the Defiant Munitions 7.62 by 3.9 ammunition here. Any questions what's that?
Pete Pie.
Pete Pie.
Pete Pie is the winner of the ammo.
Pete Pie, well, he needs it back, doesn't he? So he can, because he is currently out of that ammo. So I'm sending it to you. You're getting some of my stash. So that ought to tell you how much I love you listeners. I'm giving up a box of my Defiant Munitions. Let's see. There was one I think that first question that I asked, we got a lot of info from you guys on that. And we've had a lot of questions for Jim also. Of course, Jim couldn't get connected with us audio-wise. But this was a good question from Richard MLB. I think it was from Richard. Yeah. And he's asking Brian, he said, what would you say is the single most important or most significant thing you've learned from Jim?
Well, it really was I had wrecked a gun before I took that class. And, gosh, it was riveting technique. It sounds like a little thing, but it's actually a big thing. And I can't separate between Billy and Jim because they co-taught. And so it's all kind of mushed together. I got individualized coaching from both of them. But the one really big nugget that I got from them that's a detail but a big deal is having, when you prep the hole in actually any rivet, you need to have it chased so that the rivet can slide cleanly in and out before you start forming it. And it needs to be properly dimpled if it's a dimpled one, and countersunk. There's a little inside radius. There's a little detail there where proper countersinking, dimpling, and chasing of rivet holes is a foundational technique that bears enormous fruit. And so I'd say if it's one thing and why you should pay money, also the feedback into your hand that I was talking about at the top of the show, of knowing how much to squish. In terms of saving me from wrecking a lot of guns, it'd probably be the hand calibration of pressure on the hydraulic press.
Gotcha. So he's going to win the ammunition. He asked several questions. So he asked some really good, and all you guys asked some really good questions. Really great bunch of questions this episode. So I appreciate everyone taking part. But what was his name? Richard NLMB. Get in touch with me, talkinglead@gmail.com. As long as it's legal for you to have this, let me know what state and all that. I'm going to send you a box of Defiant Munitions ammo there. And Brian, you got a shirt or anything you want to give away this episode?
Yeah, sure. Let's give away a muzzle device.
Oh, well, hell.
And thread pitch of their choice. So half 28, 5/8 24, 14-1. And this will be a suppressor mount, but also a really good 4-tine Vortex style flash hider. Works nice. Good on anything 30 cal or below.
There you go. It's going to be hard to pick a winner for that. How about I just go through here and then I just randomly move my thing. Let me make sure I'm on. I'm going to update it. It's updating. Got all the stuff. Stop. Armus Bravus. He asked the opinions on the Rodham Chrome Line cold forged sporter barrels.
Makes sense. We were talking about barrel threading. That's perfect.
So that'll work out good.
There it is.
Bravus. TalkingLead@gmail.com. Let me know what you won. Of course, you need to know the thread pitch that he wants. And I'll send your info over to Brian, and he'll make sure you get that muzzle device. Very cool. Again, like I said, there are several questions here for Jim. We apologize for the connection issues. We'll get him on another episode. Maybe we'll get him on as a judge, Andrew, for our next episode where we're going to give away the BFT.
It's a great idea.
He would be a good judge. Maybe we'll get Billy on that too. But that's the thing. So real quick, if you want to enter our giveaway for the...
Oh, I got a 10-pack of mags, Marty.
Oh, we got a 10-pack of mags. I'm sorry. More giveaways. Hell. Brian, you picked...
About it was a simple answer, but it was a great question.
Okay.
About how to determine your the best quality parts kits or your best fitting parts kits. Obviously, try to buy a serialized one. I thought it was a good question.
Let's see. Was that Bricken? No, it was the Holy Trinity. Was that the one? No.
Somebody asked how to get the best fitting parts kits. And obviously, we all said, a serialized one, matching serial numbers would be the easiest. But I thought it was a simple, but very good question.
That was Bree Kincart. What is the best way to ensure getting relatively good matching?
Give them to that person.
Okay, Bree Kincart. So, Bree, congratulations. You just won a 10-pack of U.S. Palm mags from our presenting sponsor, Century Arms. So, there you go. So, now you're going to want to enter the BFT giveaway, so you'll have an AK to go with that, to go with your mags. So email me, talkinglead@gmail.com. Tell me what you won. So now to the contest, the giveaway. Again, what you got to do, take a picture of yourself, or you don't even have to be in the picture. You could be holding it or take a nice picture, but the most creative, the coolest picture, the coolest video, and you're going to post it to your Instagram page. Okay, not your story, because stories go away and I'll never see it again after, I think, a day after those go away. But you're going to tag Talking Lead. You're going to tag Century Arms. You're going to tag Occam Defense. You're going to tag Factory 47, Seal 1, Mission First Tactical. Did I say Factory 47?
Yep.
Defiant Munitions. All of our sponsors, IWI. Tag all of our sponsors. And if you question who they are, go to these other posts because they've done it, But the key component is hashtag. And you can use any hashtags you want, but you got to make sure you got the hashtag TLBFT47. And that's how I'm going to track them. That's how I'm going to find them. And then July episode is when we're going to give it away. We're going to do the judging, and we'll announce the winner then. We'll pick the winner. And based on the judges' votes, that's how we're going to do it. and we'll probably have some consolation prizes, and that's kind of stuff too. So participate, win. And like I said, I'm just making this for our listeners right now. So only people who listen to this podcast know how to do it, because I haven't put it out there yet really on what they need to do. But I have made people aware that we are giving one away. So hopefully we'll get more listeners that way. But we need at least 30. Like I said, at least 30 to 50 is what we're looking for. Otherwise, we'll have to come up with some other way to give it away. But it's meant to be fun, be safe, follow all the firearm safety rules. If you don't have a Century Arms firearm, then go to your local range or find a buddy who's got, and you can use Canics too. It could be any Century Arms firearm.
Use some U.S. Palm mags and whatever AK you got. I'm cool with that.
Wear your Factory 47 shirt. If you got Occam t-shirts, hats, Defiant munitions, the more of our sponsors that you have in it, as far as their products, their swag, the better. I'm not going to say that that's going to give you more points, but it probably might sway my vote. Just saying. And maybe Brian's going to be a judge. You're going to judge, right? You're going to help us judge, Brian?
Shit, yeah.
Okay, there you go. So our judges are lining up. So, keep in mind who your audience is on who you're doing these picks, these posts for. But it's meant to be fun, so have fun with it. And we're only going to take one of your posts, but you can do more than one post. But we'll only take one of your posts for the judging, as far as the judging goes. So if you've made a post and you're like, I can do better, then do another one. I encourage it. Like I said, it's meant to be fun. So I did a post, and I had pretty much everybody's stuff in my post that I did. I don't know if you guys, I know Andrew didn't see it because he doesn't have social media, but just to kind of kick things off, I did one, and I'll probably do more just to have fun with it. But it's going to be a good time. Yeah.
I'm going to throw this out there just for the Leadheads listening right now.
Yeah.
If you enter the contest, if you post a photo, if you do all the things for the contest, regardless if you win or not, we will send you something. A t-shirt, a hat, some patches. We will send you something.
Some swag. Nice.
You will get some swag, regardless if you win or not. Everybody who enters and makes a post is going to get some swag, period.
There you go. And if you don't have a Mission First dump tray, you haven't won one yet, and you don't have one, you can go and buy them. I mean, that helps support our sponsors, of the show. So go to Mission First and get a dump tray. And they don't specifically have these on their website, but if you tell them you want this logo on there, then they know what you're talking about, and they can make those because they can do custom ones. So go to Factory 47. We got discount codes. Mission First Tactical. Use Leadhead. You're going to get 20% off at Mission First Tactical. Seal 1, which you want Seal 1 anyway. You need that. This is great for corrosion protection for your firearms. You can even use this stuff on your bicycle chains. People use it for that. They use it for their boats, marine items, reels and rods. It's good for all that. Seal1.com, Leadhead, 25% off. Factory 47. I would love to see a Wolverines t-shirt, a Calumet High School t-shirt in a post. That would be awesome. Factory 47, use the code Leadhead. You're going to get 10% off any of their stuff there. But they've got all the factory logoed shirts, hats, and, of course, they've got the Talking Leadhead Brigade, or not Leadhead Brigade, but AK Corner logo t-shirts, sweatshirts. Occam Defense Solutions. Brian's got shirts. He's got patches. You still doing the banners there?
I believe we are, yeah.
Okay.
I think we have some in stock right now.
That would be just the bomb diggity if I saw a big Occam Defense banner in your background.
Like a mustache with titties. It does not get more beautiful.
Mustache with titties. That would be so cool. But a video, I would love to see videos. Somebody submit videos. And like I said, videos, pictures, either one would be great. The more of our sponsor stuff in there, the better. Defiant munitions. I've got my mags loaded up with Pete 762 right here and one of U.S. Palm's clear mags.
Polycarb.
Polycarb. There you go. So, that would be cool. And you can use lead head. It's caps, all caps at Defiant Munitions lead head. You're going to get 10% off ammo. Nobody's doing discounts on ammo right now. So that's awesome that he's offering 10%. And this is high quality. Like Billy said earlier, some of the best quality ammo that he's ever shot. And they've got 9mm, they've got the 7.62, they got the 223. But like everybody, the components and stuff are hard to get for them right now, so they might be a little back ordered on some of the stuff, but it's worth the wait, definitely. And then IWIUS, get some of their swag. Again, you don't have to have their guns, but you do have to have a Century gun in the photo. So as long as you got your Century guns and you have multiple guns, maybe you got a Canic in one and you've got an AK in the other. Just throwing some ideas out there, guys. Maybe you're at the range. Or another place where you get pictures, Andrew, is if you go to a gun, one of these gun events. There's shows and events happening, every week somewhere. Andrew's got several that he's going to be doing, so Century will be at these, these range day events, these shows. Get pictures there. Even better if maybe you're at a place and Andrew's there and you get a picture with Andrew with your gun.
Like an automatic win.
Right? It's probably going to get his vote. So I can't stress enough. So I'm trying to build it here, guys. So I want to see some participation, and we're going to have fun with it. So that's all I got. Guys, thank you so much, Billy. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Nice meeting you, Andrew. Good to see you, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah, likewise, man. Great to share some time with you here. Appreciate it.
Brian, welcome back. We're glad to have you back. Looking forward to more episodes. We're halfway through. We got 6 more episodes to go this year. Lots to talk about. Billy, you're always welcome back. Would love to have you back, brother.
Yeah, I brought all these toys to show off, and I didn't get a chance to show them off, but next time.
Is this your knives?
I brought knives. I also brought guns too.
Oh, well, why haven't you been holding them up during the?
I'm horrible at self-promoting. You guys know that.
Well, we will definitely have Billy on again for sure.
Yes.
I just show a sneak peek.
Let's have him on just to talk about his guns and knives.
Yeah, I think that's an episode on its own. But
Look
right
here.
arm of the free world.
This is a great way to end the show right here. I love this.
This is a legit imported G1.
Nice.
Look at that.
Full auto.
Dang.
Not yeah, so this is one of the ones that went to the German army in like 1956 to 59.
Look at that muzzle brake on that thing.
Yeah, it's kind of funky how they did this. Look, it just kind of comes right off. So
No kidding.
And it stays on. But yeah, so
educate.
A lot of people don't know what these. They go, that's safe, and then you go down. That's semi down here, and then all the way over is full auto. So this one has the original like German Army eagles and
what are we looking at there for our listeners that don't know what that is?
So this is a FAL, right? They call the G1, made by FN and sold to the German Army from I believe they ordered a couple thousand of them in like 1956, and they liked it so much they ordered 100,000. And then from 56 to 58. And so they wanted to basically start making them on their own, basically, I believe under HK at that point. And they had some butthurt feelings from what happened maybe 10 years earlier, right, in Germany, and how they, there's stories of how they ransacked FN, and, bomb buildings and whatever. And so they didn't want to sell them the rights to build the gun. So they stopped making them for them. And so I believe, like they said, maybe the rest, they sold off, the rest of them to Argentina, I think at that point. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then those guys just kind of destroyed them at that point, just shot the piss out of them, made them rust buckets. But this one, I don't believe this one was ever sent to that Argentina. It was straight up from Germany. And then after that, the Germans made the G3, right? So which became the most popular battle rifle in the world. So just a piece of history. A friend of mine gave me this that he passed away. And so his son kind of gave this to me and figured I'd appreciate it. So
nice.
it's from a friend Chuck Marshall, so I appreciate it. I just want to show you guys this, but
That's
one of many
beautiful.
toys I have. Just because I'm an AK guy doesn't mean I don't appreciate non-com block stuff too. Here's
Well,
a
and
quick,
that's
I
kind
showed
of.
this earlier.
Oh yeah, the full auto 22.
Yeah, full auto 1022 and stuff like that. So
That's cool.
I got a bunch of toys I could show off next time. But
Well, we're all gun guys, and we appreciate all guns, and we
Yeah.
do talk other firearms on the AK corner. We've done the Uzi, we've done the Valmet, we've talked about several.
Galils.
Yeah, Galils. So I mean, maybe get some of that stuff on here, and we'll do an episode on that. Definitely.
Yeah, I got a transferable Uzi right now.
Oh shit.
In the safe. I could have brought it out, but
Now you're
Put
just
out the
rubbing
time.
it in, man. Now you're just rubbing it
next
in.
time. Next time.
I think we need a dedicated Billy episode.
No.
I agree with that statement.
I think we
No.
will. And Billy, the knives, we definitely get you on the regular show, and we'll talk about the knives. I got some things in the work. So yeah, we'll definitely get in touch with you on
I'll
that.
show one more knife real quick. This is what they call the Mugen. So this is made out of Damascus.
Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
Zirconium accents on there.
Damn.
Yeah. So
For you guys listening, you need to get on YouTube and check out this
Check out the
video
video.
version. There's some real art here.
Inside that middle of that pivot is zirconium inlay. Zirconium is what they use for explosive ammunition, right? But people don't know if you make it red hot, it has this crazy black oxide on there that you can make.
That's
it weird
gorgeous.
that is beautiful.
So here's one of my knives, and I made the thumb stud out of zirconium as well.
Wow.
Beautiful. So
Yeah, that's one of my
Andrew,
knives.
real quick, anything new, exciting going on at Century that we need to be aware of?
I mean, we launched a butt ton of new products at NRA. So we launched a bunch of new Canic pistols, the Canic Pro Series, the Canic Mete SF. Of course, you had the rivals already. We also launched our new NAC 9S. So it's our NAC 9, but instead of using the Glock stick mags, it uses the Scorpion mag. So we just adapted a new adapter that uses the Scorpion mag instead. Just gives you that curved mag look, so it doesn't have that straight stick look, which AK guys like me hate. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So excited about that. As far as new AK stuff, that's kind of our newest AK thing we've got going right now.
Very cool. Very cool. And then where are you guys going to be? You got some shows and things that you're doing?
I mean, that's just dealer stuff. That's not like open to the public
Just
or
do
anything.
so no range days or anything that the public would.
I mean, we have range days all the time, all over the country. So, just check with your local gun shop or your local shooting range and ask them when they're having their next range day. And chances are there'll be a rep from Century there.
There you go. Very cool. Brian Occam, anything you can talk about?
About to drop a few new products. Our PH2 iron sights are in machining right now for all you folks with pre-orders. I think we're still on track to be shipping them something like August, or I'm hoping for early August. But yeah, it's been. I shared this on another video, but machine shops are just completely slammed, and I found out that the reason is that a whole bunch of companies are onshoring stuff that was previously made in Asia. And so, boy, is that a good, in all this dark stuff, it's really good to know that U.S. manufacturing of machine parts is back up and really humming. And that's awesome. Let's see, we've got more gas blocks in machining right now. Let's see, we have, what are they
Your
called?
sights?
No, not the sights, our braces, the
Razor
tail
struts?
hook Mod 1 compact. We have those in stock and shipping, and apparently people are paying like $600 for them on Gunbroker right now.
Oh,
and
shit,
you
I
can
got
buy
like 3
our.
of them, Keeney.
What's that?
I said, shit, I've got like 3 of them. I need to get on Gunbroker.
Oh yeah, you do need to get on Gunbroker. Tell your homies that for I think under 300, it's right around 300. You can have a SIG hinge, one of our brace struts, and a tail hook compact. You can get 2 of those for what they're going for on Gunbroker. So that's our not sale, but super deal going on at the moment.
Nice. Very good. And that's OccamDefense.com. Just Occam Defense.
OccamDefense.com. Yep.
Very, very good. And then, Billy, again, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to see your stuff, Instagram, you've got several accounts. Give those.
Yeah. My website is occamdefense.com. I'm just kidding. You can, my Instagram is instagram.com/chogunassassin to see a lot of my knife work on there. And then instagram.com/Born Armory to see a lot of my gun work. So appreciate you for the plug.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, we appreciate you taking the time to be on. Again, Leadheads, we're sorry about Jim, but he was kind of bummed about it as well. But we'll get him back on, definitely. So until the next episode, don't disappoint me. I want to see your post on Instagram. Take part in this, because July's episode, if I got to change it to something else because of lack of participation, I'm going to be pissed. So that's all I got to say. So until then, make me proud, Leadheads. Out. Right on time.
Yeah, always a Marty production can always go either way. You never know.
A Marty production.
We can be on the numbers, or we can be way the hell off.
This is true.